Hi, Anna. How are you, Anna? How did it go in Florida? What can we do to support?
Well, this is kind of a first dip into the Florida pool because um, I only had like 15 minutes and I stretched that, and that's why I'm late. But uh, basically, kind of going over some things, considerations for everybody, and encouraging them to get over the growing pains that they're having, and to be patient and kind with each other, and to respect the rights of others to express themselves, even if they're expressing something that is unpopular, they still have that absolute right. Just basics about how our government is different, how it doesn't work as a majority rule. It's not a democracy. It never has been. It's based on the rights and protection of individuals. These are concepts that we were never taught. It's a legacy of a government that we've never experienced. And, very few of our institutions and our parts of our government survived for 165 years. Basically, we had one state left, Texas. God bless the Texans. We're still functioning. We had a total of 22 counties out of over 3,000. 22 counties were still functioning as American counties. And the Federation was the only part of the American government that was still functional, still viable, and still populated. Think about that. We've come a long way. But as we are educating millions of Americans, and as millions of Americans are going to turn and come heading our direction, they'll be coming for the wrong reasons. They'll be coming in completely ignorant, okay? But they're coming. And they will come because this is how they can claim their stuff back. This is how they can retrieve their public and private identity and their rights and guarantees, their treaties, their property. Yes, they're going to be headed toward each and every state assembly in mass numbers. And that's why those who are part of the assembly now really have to work together and really have to get their orientation programs together, because you're going to have all these people wandering in off the street, just like you did, and they are not going to know their own government. They won't know how it works. They won't know its customs and traditions. They won't know its laws. We function under a completely different set of laws. So they're going to come stumbling in, and they're still going to want to talk about federal code that applies to US citizens. They're still going to want to talk about state of state statutory laws that never applied to them in the first place. They're going to be coming in, and a lot of them are just going to want the money. I want my money. I want my inheritance, right? They're going to be 100% about the money, and they're not going to stop and think that, oh, in order to keep and defend and actually enjoy this money and not be forever beset upon those who want to steal it from me, I'm going to have to join with other people and actually staff my own government. Okay? So that was kind of the gist of my first round of interactions with the Florida Assembly, which admittedly was kind of a download from my side more than a interaction with them tonight.
So thank you for doing that. Always taking time out of your incredibly busy schedule to help assemblies to get over their challenges. So
well, this one is going to be, I think, a challenge for all the assemblies. because you're going to have to provide good, solid orientation programs for new members. You're going to try to have to uplift their viewpoint about government, what government really is versus the government they've known. And you're going to be in a position where you will have to kind of retrain their expectation, because they are used to a government that's a nanny state that comes in and seizes control of them and their assets and tells them when to go to the bathroom, when to sit down, how to dress, and what to think. And this is a government where they have to take responsibility for all of that, and they have to come to grips with thoughts about things they've never thought. This is really a mental, spiritual quest. And learning your history. We have people all over the world who are doing this now. We get so turtled down in what we're facing. We've got it easy compared to a lot of countries. A lot of countries never had the kind of basis that we have to begin with. So they're building from the ground up. They're acting as their own founding fathers now. And they're kind of looking to us for, example of how they can do it. We have a lot of people all over the world who are waking up and realizing that, oh yeah, there should be a government of the people, right? And when they look around, they find the same thing that we found, was that instead of a government of the people, it was a government of the employees of the people. All right. So this is going to be a huge learning experience, not only for us, but for many other people all over the world. And at the end of the process, we're all going to be far more responsible for ourselves, for our families, for our communities, for our counties, for our states, and for our country, and within everything, our world. Because many people ask me, well, why do you spend time talking to people in Ireland or Germany or India or Afghanistan? Why should you be spending time being concerned about them? Because they're people too. Because they're part of the human race. Because they are part of what we call humankind. And they have lives, and they have needs and private property and rights and responsibilities, and they are struggling just as much as we are. Many of them have been harmed in exactly the same way we have, by the same parties, no less. So of course I talk to them. I talk to them the way I would talk to any neighbor who had a problem, right? I may not be able to solve my neighbor's problem, but I will certainly talk to them about it and give them the benefit of any insight I have that would help them. And so that's why we continue to interact with all the rest of the world. It isn't just America's problem. And so I have concerns about the way our subcontractors have treated us. I also have concerns about the way our subcontractors are operating and treating other people. And when I see that our subcontractors are not following international law and are not respecting their constitutional obligations and limitations, well, then I'm going to be right there with my foot down saying, no. Basically, Mr. Trump, this week, you used our Title IV flag and violated another country's sovereignty and essentially gave the impression that our country was at war with Iran when our Congress did not declare war. And nobody gave you the right or any other president of any federal subcontractor the right to declare war on our behalf. This is a big problem. I'll observe to you what I observed to the Florida Assembly tonight. A U.S. gunship drew down and destroyed a ship called the Iristina, an Iranian ship that was out just sailing peaceably along in the high seas. Well, that's a crime. That's against international law. And we're being accused of doing that. But I want you to remember something. Where did this act occur? It occurred on the high seas. And who is the trustee of the American fleet on the high seas? The British monarch. So those ships were under British command. Those American ships that were flying our Title IV flag, and Donald Trump as commander-in-chief. Now remember, commander is a naval office. He was operating under the authority of the British Admiralty and Crown. It was the Brits using us as a sock puppet that ordered that strike on the Iranian vessel. But we're taking the heat for it. We're looking like the bad guys. We're the sock monkey, the scapegoat, the storefront for British aggression. And we're taking it in the shorts. Makes it look like we're lawless. Makes it look like we're the bad guys. Makes it look like we're attacking without any kind of authority or law or cause. But it's not us, it's the Brits manipulating the situation as they always have. So these are the sorts of things that I have to deal with. These are the sorts of things I have to bring forward. These are the fights that I have on a daily basis. And it's from understanding our history and understanding the role of our government and understanding our contracts with the service providers. But all of you have an equal role. And I need people who are going to follow after me and take over my, step into my shoes. I'm not going to be here forever. So out of these assemblies of Americans are my only replacements. You're it. You all have to grow up and learn the stuff that I know and take over. So it's not just your state, and it's not just your own private property. It's your country and ultimately your world that you have to step up and be responsible for and start thinking about in a whole new way. Okay? Because this is all coming, and it's coming fast. Right now, there's a big, yak about dynasty trusts and all these other kinds of trusts. Everybody's suddenly going trust crazy because they think they need a trust. And all these purveyors of kind of half-baked information and all sorts of opportunists and willing executors de son tort are out there offering services by which they hope to convince you to sign an irrevocable trust document. Well, folks, what they're after is your American infant descendant estate, the estate that you were born with. When you were just a little baby and you landed on our land and soil, guess what? You became an American and you had an American estate. That was stolen from you within a few weeks or days after you were born. It was taken from you without your knowledge or consent. It was basically purloined by the British territorial government, subcontractors, under conditions of deceit and non-disclosure to your parents, because not even your parents were aware of what they were signing. So you were disinherited when you were just a baby by acts of fraud and deceit from people that owed you good faith service. And now they're trying to get back in the saddle and get you to sign over your irrevocable trust to them. Don't even think about it. You don't need a trust, except you should have your own last will and testament in case you die or disabled or wind up on a Caribbean island like Robinson Crusoe and can't get home for 20 years, okay? You need a last will and testament. And that is a trust. That is a form of trust. And you need, if you have minor children, you need a agreement with whoever is going to take over in your stead. If you die, who is going to be the guardian of your minor children? You need to have that either in your last will and testament, or you have to have a separate document drawn up, and you need to have multiple copies of that distributed to, if you're a young person, to the grandparents, uncles or aunties, to best friends, to the proposed guardians. Now, share it out. But that's the only kind of trust that you actually need. Now, there is a flap about what's called the express trust. Well, all of you who are here tonight are in training to be coordinators, so you are presumed to know that we have Americans and we have US citizens, right? Well, the US citizens have a completely different situation. So for them and for us, it's a multiplicit pathway home. Those of us who aren't US citizens, who are just state nationals or state citizens, have a direct route home. Those of us who are Americans serving in the military or Americans serving in the federal civil service have a slightly different route home. But you can still get home. You can still seize upon and claim your birthright. You may have to temporarily, while you're in service, until you quit or retire, you may have to use a trust to hold your assets until you return to a non-citizenship status. So, you know, when you're all the way home, when you're a state national again, and only a state national, then you won't need that extra step. All right. So about 12% of us will have to have a trust in order to get home, but only those who are in the military or in the federal civil service will be affected by that. And actually, all of our states already have common law trusts. All of our country as a whole has a common law trust. And there are lots of ways in which you can safely create a common law trust for yourself, very simply, to ensure that your birthright is protected and is not held by foreign monarchs or foreign governments. Anyway, that's something that I need to discuss in a whole separate section with people who are currently in the military or currently in federal civil service. But for, you know, Joe average American, a last will and testament and a guardianship agreement, and you are golden.
Anna, what about what would it be called in our jurisdiction? Like there's a healthcare directive, you know, that people can have in place to make sure that their wishes are carried out medically. Is that the same terminology in our jurisdiction?
Actually, anybody can write up a predetermined health directive, and that's allowed on internationally. That's international law. and it's also codified in federal code. The basics of it are that you do have control of your health decisions. And back during the COVID-19 disaster, we advised everybody to have a pre-established health directive that, for example, if you knew that you were going into the hospital to have a baby, you stipulated before you went in that you weren't going to get the COVID-19 shot, that the baby was not to be given the COVID-19 shot, that you selected which, if any, of the early vaccines the child was to get or not get yourself. You took charge of your own decisions about what they could and could not do to you before you even went into the hospital. And on the day, you presented it to the doctor and the hospital staff so that there was no question what your will in the matter was. And they have to obey you. They can't just go willy-nilly and apply whatever they think to your body. So these individual health directives are very, very handy, especially if you know that you're going in for surgery. Say you have doing a joint replacement, or you're doing a bariatric surgery, or tonsil removal type things where you know that you're going to go in. But you should have something that is written up in advance and carried with you, so that if you're in an accident and you're taken to, well, let's put this in, you can have this advanced health directory or directive on file with your local hospital. I mean, if you're like most Americans, you live near a hospital, and that's the one where you're going to get taken if there's an accident in your home or around your yard or whatever. You know the surrounding hospitals. But what happens if you're on a trip and some guy slams into your car and you wind up being taken to a different hospital where you're not known? Well, then you want to have a copy of your advanced health directory with you in your purse, among your personal effects, so that when you get taken to that hospital and they scoop up all your stuff and they, take you there, there's already that little piece of paper that says, well, I do not want the COVID-19 vaccine. Any blood transfusions must be from donors that did not receive the COVID-19 vaccine. I do not wish to be placed on a resuscitation or kept alive artificially. Whatever your decisions are about these major issues, you should have it in writing, in your purse, on your person, in your wallet, somewhere where it's going to be seen and adhered to by whatever medical staff might be handling you as you are recovering from an accident. Or another one that's, EpiPens. More people who are allergic to bees and strawberries and things of this nature that are in danger of anaphylactic shock. We all need to get more aware of this phenomenon and the problems that these people have. They die within minutes if they don't get a shot of epinephrine. So we all need to know how to operate an EpiPen, and we should all carry one with us, so that if God forbid, I was having dinner with a woman and her husband, and she got a trace of strawberry from a dessert that didn't have any strawberries in it, but had somehow touched a strawberry in the process of being made. And she went into anaphylactic shock right there in the restaurant. And thank God, someone else who had that, had those kinds of allergies was there dining too, and came over and went zap and saved her life. So this is a health issue, would you like having your advanced medical directive is, something to have in advance. So yeah, give your local hospitals your advanced medical directive and carry one with you. And also consider getting some training about EpiPens, and consider keeping an extra one in your glove box, or, in your purse, or, just carried discreetly, so that if you wind up in a situation like that, you can do something to save someone's life.
Very helpful. And for children too. I know
Yes.
in California, it's crazy. Once kids reach the age of 12, they're not allowed to go into the examining room with the doctor unless the child signs a consent form. And so kids need to, parents should have some sort of a directive on record for their children too.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, you want to mention keeping records. That any procedure that you receive, you want records kept of the people that treat you and the treatments that they give you. Because, for example, if you give birth in a hospital, they won't keep a record of it. It will just disappear. So in your advanced health directive, if you're going in and you're going to the maternity ward and you're going to give birth to a child, make that part of your advanced health directive, that you will keep complete record of the people that treat me that during this process, and you will keep track of what treatment I received. Because otherwise, you won't exist, and neither will your child as far as the hospital is concerned. You will vanish from their records, and there will be no record that you were ever there, aside from those records that you keep yourself and those witness statements that you keep. I don't know about you guys, but this past week, there was a news announcement out of, I believe it was California, or maybe it was New Jersey. I'm opposite sides of the country, but there was a news clip that got circulated about a man who was in the hospital for a minor injury, and he overheard two hospital workers saying, "No family, we'll get started tonight." And he was strapped down, but he was still mobile enough so that he could wiggle out and get free. And he was in good enough shape. He was a young man in his, 30s or 40s. And he got into an air duct and got out of the hospital and ran for it. And, got to the local police, and they thought at first he was crazy. They thought he'd, flipped out because of a medical issue or drugs or something. But he finally convinced them that they were plotting an organ theft and that he was the target. And it was because he had said that he had no family. So if you have to go into the hospital, make sure that you list a whole bunch of family and friends who are going to show up and know that you're there, okay? Especially those of us who are young and healthy and who might be the target of such an operation. This was a young man, he was in good shape. And and they went in and they did, the police then, on the basis of his signed affidavit, went into the hospital and researched what was going on in the basement. And they found unregistered refrigerators and an entire database in a hidden room. And they found 4 people strapped down to gurneys who were, sedated. And it was obvious that he was right. There was an actual organ harvesting operation going on in a normal hospital. And there were files on 28 former patients at that hospital that apparently had suffered this fate. So we have problems in this country. We have big problems in this country, and we have a lot of problems with the health industry at this point. And I think it's appropriate that we all share that information. And when we do our advanced directives, we make it very clear that no, we are not organ donors. unless that happens to be something that you wish to participate in. And if you do wish to be an organ donor, and make sure that it's only in the event of my natural death, you know, that you could, that you would consent to be an organ donor, because all of this is being abused. Trust is being abused by these corporations. So that you can't assume anything. You have to put it in writing, and you need to have your contacts in case you are injured or otherwise delivered to a hospital. You know, an ambulance service takes charge and rushes you to a hospital. Have that advance directive with you, and certainly talk it over with your doctor. Something that commonly happens. Not all of us have a family physician anymore. That used to be common as dirt. Not all of us have a family physician anymore, and we should make the effort to find a general practitioner to serve as our family doctor. Because if you have a family physician listed, if something happens to you, the hospital is more or less obligated, if they know the name of your family physician, to call them and to consult with them about you. Otherwise, they're failing their due diligence. And so if you have a family physician who's familiar with you and that you're familiar with, make sure that that's part of your advance directive.
It's so weird that we even have to be having a conversation like this, but you're absolutely right. I mean, we see what happened and is still happening in China. And it's like, if it can happen there, it can happen, it really can happen anywhere. And that's,
China's a mess.
it's a whole global trade that they're doing. Yeah.
Well, China, I don't know if you've seen the news coming out of China, but China has been hit really, really hard with some form of poisoning, or hard to describe. It's a sudden death syndrome where it's not being let out what's causing the mass death, but they are dying. Large numbers of Chinese are dying and disappearing. And entire villages and town sites and cities are absolutely, basically, the population has disappeared. And we know that they're dying because, number one, the amount of pollution coming from crematoriums, and number two, the number of ghost fires that are lit. Now, ghost fires are fires that are lit traditionally around Halloween time here, and the traditional Chinese way is to honor the ancestor or family member who's passed that year by lighting a fire and burning incense. Well, this past fall, just looking from Google Earth, you could see China lit up like a Christmas tree.
Wow.
So vast numbers of people in China have died, and it is not clear what they're dying from. It does not appear to be a typical epidemic type thing. But it does appear that large numbers and entire villages, both rural and urban, have disappeared over the past 3 years. And you will also see that there is a vast downturn in Chinese industry and productivity and output of products. Well, if half your population is gone, it stands to reason that half of your productivity is gone too. So this is a very strange and very, to me, a very concerning situation with China. Part of the reason that you haven't heard anything from China about the situation in Iran is that China is going through this depopulation. So the face of China is being irrevocably changed from being one of the world's most populous countries to being perhaps about 1/3 of the population that it had when all of this started.
That's crazy.
Well, yeah, and it's especially terrible for China because China built its entire economy on its skilled workforce. I mean, China did not have the energy resources. China did not have the arable land sources, but what they had as their treasure were their people, their skilled workforce.
Mhm.
And to lose their people is to lose their wealth, is to lose their power in the world. And so it's a huge, huge, huge national tragedy. And it's being completely suppressed in the Western media. And we are very concerned about China. And we're very concerned also about India, which has gone comparatively silent in recent days about reported changes in their population. India, like China, has a very significant part of their national wealth invested in their people. And they have a large population of potential workforces all over the subcontinent. So loss of their population is loss of their wealth. Now, India is considerably richer in terms of natural resources than China. India has energy. India has gold. India has gems. India has spices. Now, India has wealth of a kind that can't be taken from it very easily at all. And so the Indian subcontinent is comparatively wealthy in other ways than just their workforce. But when you start seeing both India and China suffering large losses of population, then you have to perk up your ears and go, yeah, well, it looks like Agenda 2030 got pushed up a bit.
Well, this is the aftermath of the COVID-19 scamdemic.
Well, it could be, but until those kinds of determinations and analysis is, that analysis is done, it's you're left going, what the? And we are also suffering population decline in this country. And that is partially a result of, turbo cancer, 176,000 extra cancer deaths in the past 12 months. That statistic is really pretty indicative of the only cause that we know of is the COVID-19 shot. And it's suppressing action on the cancer gene that normally suppresses cancer. So anyway, we've lost about 2.5 million excess deaths that we know of. But that's nothing compared to China. And that's nothing compared to India. And but it's still a very significant loss for us. Anyway, this gets into the realm of intelligence operations and what you can believe or not believe, but it certainly means that those advanced directives are important, and we should be, telling our friends, family members, assembly members, everybody to get ready and be prepared, and if your militia effort doesn't do anything else, organize first aid training. Get your folks up to speed on first aid and initial triage situations and EpiPens, things that you can do that will save lives. And kind of review how to how to do basic things that will staunch blood flow, that will keep wounds clean. These are basic knowledges, and I know that I hadn't had first aid since I was 12 years old. When I took a new course of first aid when I was 60, a lot had changed. So even though you grew up and you raised your kids and you raised your grandkids and everything, and you know how to flap on a Band-Aid and you know how to use Caladryl lotion, you know, you've got all these basics down that you've used all your life. Taking that first aid class will be a real eye-opener because things have changed. Materials have changed, drugs have changed, kinds of bandages have changed. So for those of you who haven't had a recent first aid class, consider getting your assembly organized to bring in a first aid trainer and go over first aid procedures for your members. You know, the life you save might be your own or somebody that you love. And whatever training that we can get that is going to help us be more effective as first responder type assistant on the ground. Hey, what if nobody else is around? What if it's just you, me, and the chickens? Well, then it's going to be up to you, right? I know that my mother was driving home with a friend who had a heart attack at the wheel. So here she was, tiny little old lady, 5 foot nothing, probably about 120 pounds, soaking wet. And she's trying to wrestle a steering wheel away from a 250-pound guy who's having a heart attack and keeping the car on the road, getting the car stopped and getting him stretched out and, getting assistance for him. Now, if she hadn't had the training that she had, that man would be dead. But she was able to do all those things, and she was like 89 at the time. So, just goes to prove sometimes, we save our friends, we save our family members because we have the training, because we know what to do, because we recognize the signs of a stroke, or because we recognize the signs of a vitamin deficiency that's gone on for too long. All these things that we learn are of value to us, but they're also of value to everybody around us. So those are things that your militias can get involved in, and you can build on those kinds of knowledges and training sessions to expand to other kinds of community interests and services like food banking and, preparation of communities for emergencies and disasters so that you have a plan. In the military, you have a plan, you watch the plan fall apart, and then you build a new plan on the fly. Well, here in America, where we're standing militias, we have a better chance of actually applying things like soup kitchens and mobile sanitation units and emergency community tent cities to give people emergency shelter. So all those things, and we've certainly had occasion where our own people have been in situations this past year. Look at what happened during Hurricane Helene. Look at what we learned from that. I don't know if police is still on, but we really had a learning experience where we had to get supplies, we had to get injured people out, we had to get dead bodies removed, and the sanitation issues were horrific. We had to negotiate with all the different all the other agencies that were there supposedly to help. We had to stand in the way of FEMA so that FEMA didn't actually harm people. It was a wild and crazy experience, but we learned from Hurricane Helene a lot of what we don't have and what we need, including can openers. So anyway, those experiences can be shared with all the other assemblies to gain insight into what is really required when you've got a situation and what's the assembly going to do about it. How are we going to protect our members? How are we going to get help to our members? These are big concerns. Okay, well, we've kind of gone on about some important stuff here, but let's get those questions.
Thank you, Anna. Yes, all important stuff. And we do have a new militia commander on California. So I know he's on the call. So that's great.
Yay! Yay!
Great
Yay.
training. All right. First up is David Hara. Go ahead, David.
Thank you, Michelle. Anna, it is so good to see you. I was a little bit concerned when Shannon wanted to, get shut you down on Monday night. And you said that you hadn't had anything to eat or any sleep for a week. Anyway, it's so good to see you here. I would like to offer my time. Before you came, Anna, Glenn from Florida was talking about things that he was concerned you might not have been able to hear because he was put out of the meeting as you were there. I'd like to donate my time to Glenn on Florida if he's interested in taking my place. I yield.
Bless you as always, David. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. I appreciate that. How you doing, Anna?
Good. Yeah, you are up on the screen now. Good.
Good. So I'm not sure if you were aware when you got on the call that Ralph had dropped 9 of us off the call, that he had shortly before you got on the call banned for a year.
So do you need the names?
And if you need the names so that you can make sure we can get back on the meeting next week when you join us, I can email that to you.
Okay, well, go ahead and email it to me. I'll get back with Ralph and find out, if that was a legitimate vote or what.
There
was no vote.
There was no vote. There was no due process. It just was sprung on us by surprise tonight. Part of his agenda that he banned 9 of us for a year.
Okay.
No warning.
Well, we will be talking to him about that. And yes, please do send me the 9 names and if possible, their email contacts.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. I don't want to take the rest of the assembly's time tonight. Thank you. I yield.
Okay. Thanks. Take care.
Thank you.
We'll get it all straightened out.
Definitely. Next up is Gregory. Go ahead, Gregory.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I had a question. I just got shanghaied by the local police again. I was not able to get in my backpack with my status documents and had to forced to sign fortunately just a traffic ticket. But I have a lawman that I first saw in question law, and he went through a court case and swore off all contracts in a paper in the court, and that did it for him. Do not arrest, do not detain, federal level warning. And I just was interested in that myself because I'm being harassed daily by what seems to be it's Homeland Security. I've got all these planes flying over, helicopters, police helicopters, all this yada yada. In any event, I just recently sent my silver bullet letter and my status documents plus the education documents in the silver bullet to Marco Rubio, which I haven't heard from yet. I guess he's pretty busy with a war or something.
Yeah.
And I also sent it to Shirley Weber, California Secretary of State, and it was sent back and no signature on it, but from her notary department saying the 2 paragraphs. One seemed a bit threatening that like, are you sending us a document to commit fraud or, a crime, something related to that. And they talked about $20 to, I guess, have them do one of their processes with. And so the silver bullet says to notice of liability, part of it, the middle part, and correct your records. So they dishonored it and sent it back, and they have a duty to basically extract me from their system. And so is there a way to get on the do not detain list, federal list, or I mean, it seems like, this is an item for resolution through the U.S. State Department Bureau of Consular Affairs. And I don't know if there's anything working on that, or should I send a letter to the U.S. State Department Bureau of Consular Affairs instead of Marco Rubio? Because I've been getting constantly harassed by de facto.
Well, what are you doing that is so attractive to them? If I may ask, just
Well, it started about 8 years ago when the police were following me around as having to live in my truck, and I just started flipping the police helicopters off, and that's where it started. And so then I stopped carrying a telephone. And so then I had 2 weeks later gotten a phone call to a friend, and I just was angry, said, "Oh, I hate pigs. I've always hated them." They took that, I believe what they did is took that recording and passed it on to Homeland Security because they couldn't track me anymore. So Homeland Security just took up the gauntlet and said, "Oh yeah, we'll take care of you guys. We'll get him," and just kind of targeted me. So that's kind of the impetus of where it started. It just hasn't gone away.
well, it may go away now that Christine Owen has been removed from her position for acts of basically treason, sharing secrets with foreign governments. So I think you're going to see NSA restructured, hopefully for the better.
What about the California Secretary of State getting sort of a way to come at them again to I mean, Doug Minnick was on our call today, due process 202. He was mentioning to do a true bill and lean him, and I just don't want to be at the head of that line because I'm being harassed. I mean, their courts are pretty fraudulent. I don't want to end up with quite a lot of felonies filed against me for making some. They just make it up, like simulation of law, or they just get creative on you.
Well, they are at the end of their rope is what's happening. They're losing money. They've basically been played by the British government. And they realize that they're on very shaky ground, and there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of disinformation circulating right now. And frankly, a lot of the people that are working for the government are afraid. They don't know what's happening. They don't know why it's happening. So they're clinging hard to, what they think is certain and secure, which in their view is federal code and statute, and they're trying to apply it to everybody indiscriminately. And anyone who sticks out as a sore thumb is likely to be targeted. And may I ask which state you're in?
I'm in California, San Diego.
California is one of the worst states to be in terms of abuses of, any right to privacy or any right to travel, especially now with the vast, rapid changes in emphasis away from the migration issues and the borders and everything, and toward these international, well, what would you call them? They're not wars, but these international attacks that the Trump administration has been carrying out against Iran, Cuba, and other countries too, where to a greater and lesser extent, these commercial corporations have declared mercenary wars on sovereign states and have turned their attention away from California and from the migration issues that they were supposed to be cleaning up. So they've shifted 180 from domestic issues to international issues, and only God knows all the reasons why. But this leaves you more or less at the mercy of the California State Police. And they, of course, are about as crooked as any police force on earth at this point. They've been working for Gavin Newsom for a long time, and the corruption and rot has had ample opportunity to infest every level of law enforcement in California. And that does include NSA and all the other various federal agency organizations in California. Unfortunately, you know, our Silver Bullet group has been working on, you know, their understanding of federal code and how state statutes that are the pedal to the metal when it comes to traffic stops and that sort of thing. But I have been working on something for the Silver Bullet group that is a little bit different and is a different approach that I haven't gotten finished yet. I do have literally tons of great information about how they are administering the travel laws now, and I can share that with you if you send me an email.
Okay.
The problem here is that they basically declared a public martial law. They have been occupying this country illegally under private contract for 165 years, but Trump has brought it out of the closet to a greater degree. And so while they're off fighting in foreign areas, the martial law aspect of it raises its head to a greater degree. And they are doing a lot of ugly things out on the roads, although in many areas you won't see any highway patrols because they don't have funding. So where they still have highway patrols, they're hungry and they're revenuers and they're out to get you no matter who you are. And if you just happen to look a little bit suspicious to them or have a history with, you know, resisting their suppositions about you and about what you're doing, they are more likely to target you now for travel infractions than they were even 6 months ago. Again, that is in areas where the traffic patrol still exists in a functional capacity, but in a lot of areas, a lot of states, you don't even see the you know, highway patrols. Again, you know, they don't exist outside of the cities. So anyway, in your particular case, you might consider trying a somewhat different approach. You mentioned when you first started, a friend of yours severed all contracts and did it on the spot. Well, there are several different premises attached to that, and I haven't seen the document. I'd like you to send that to me so that I can analyze it and see if it would work for us and for what we need to do for our members.
Well, that's not available, unfortunately. Somebody in the government, he had it buried somewhere because and they dug it up and they took all of his documents. The court case completely disappeared from the courtroom. So I'd have to start from scratch.
And he's not available to talk to?
Oh yeah, I'll contact him and ask him about that. Maybe he can piece something together.
Yeah, well, one of the things that we can do is to use their own rules against them. And of course, that's what Doug Minnick has devoted his life to. And, you know, one of the key pieces that we have is that we can do our own declarations. They have a provision 28 U.S. Code 1746(1) allows you to declare under penalty of perjury from without the United States and without the United States of America Incorporated for and of the public record. So you can use that as a way to get your affidavits on the record so that they can't ignore you. And they, at the present time, with the way the courts are organized as military courts, they cannot ignore that. Okay, so then you can proceed to lay out what happened or the information that you want to get to the court, and the judge cannot ignore you. One of the key things that needs to be stated in open court, it has to be stated for the record, if you appear before court, is you have to request to be, you have to request to make an affirmation under penalty of perjury, which I just gave you, the US 28 USC 1746 1. You request to make a declaration under this particular code, and you are requesting to make an affirmation on the public record of the court. And you basically make the declaration that your lifetime status and intention to be a national, but not a citizen of the United States, and that you are a birthright national of the pre-Civil War state known as California in your case.
Okay, I've had a traffic case before, so I'm thinking I have to put that in testimony in the form of an affidavit and file it into the case before I get there. Because last time I went on a bike light, it was an arraignment, and the judge railroaded me. I tried to hand documents to the bailiff to give, and they were all dressed in military. A couple of them, looking pretty tough at me. And then I was trying to talk to the judge, and I was just completely railroaded. And she forced me to the podium. I said, I'm not here to plea. And I had, some the right talking points, and I had to go up to the podium and was forced up there. And then she entered a plea for me, and just before I could say, are you practicing law from the bench? Some of these other things, she just got right out of there. So
the easiest thing to do is to return their ticket within 3 days, and it disappears. Because they've already collected the money that they can collect on it, and they can't produce the actual ticket they can't produce because they had to turn in the signature to get paid. So the easiest way to deal with traffic tickets is to, within 3 days, contact given on the copy of the ticket, whatever court clerk or person is supposed to be collecting, and request the actual ticket. A mistake has been made. I can't pay off of a copy. I need the original signature copy of the citation to pay off. And magically, they can't produce the original ticket, because as soon as the ticket book goes back in for the night, they rip all those tickets off and they charge them out and get paid for them. So they've already been paid once for the citation out of your trust fund, and now they're trying to double dip by getting you to voluntarily pay the citation off of a copy. Okay, so the simplest way is to request the original copy, the signature copy of the citation, to enable you to pay it. Because without that original signature copy, you don't have what you need to resolve the issue. And 9 times out of 10, or maybe 99 out of 100, the whole thing just simply goes away, because they have to be content with having been paid out of your trust fund. And they're discouraged from continuing to try to force you to give them an extra dollop.
okay.
So that's the easiest. And, making that declaration that you declare your lifetime intention to be a national, but not a citizen of the United States, and that you are a national of the pre-Civil War state known as California, that puts your status in front of them in a way they can't ignore. And the use of 28 U.S. Code 1746, Section 1, allows you to do that in a way that they can't ignore. So it sounds to me like you've just got a bunch of judges who are reckless and railroading and think that they can just get away with murder, who are intent on evading you. But I have to say that in the very near future, like within the next 3 months, a lot of these courts are simply going to shut down and go away because they're operating both unlawfully and illegally. And their abuses have become so unsavory that all the politicians are bailing. I don't know if everybody has heard this, but a large percentage of the members of Congress are retiring en masse and not seeking re-election. And there's a reason for that. It's because they've been operating illegally, unlawfully, and immorally for 165 years. And this is now being brought forward into the international forums and diplomatic sessions. And people all over the world are now aware of how they have substituted themselves for the American Congress. And let me tell you that even though Britain has been trying to hide behind our skirts and making use of every devious means to make us look like the bad guys, and trying to find excuses for sending us their bills for their moonlighting operations like the attack on Iran, they're failing. The bankers are spooked. The bankers that have been colluding and going along with this are putting on the brakes and taking off the blinkers, because it's beginning to come home to them that if they didn't pay them, this wouldn't be going on. And that we're the actual owners of the property and the rights. So if I have my way, the district court system itself is going to disappear, and the corporations, district court system is a corporation. It's a commercial corporation, and it's operated for profit. And it's been operating illegally, immorally, and unlawfully for a long time. So if I have anything to say about it, they're going to be bankrupted unceremoniously, and then they will have to shut down. And also, if I have anything to say about it, no district court will be operating in the states of the Union. District courts are for the District of Columbia and for those personnel that live in the District of Columbia. They're not supposed to be here. They were not here prior to the Civil War. And they have been performing illegally ever since the Civil War. So if I have anything to say about it, the district courts are going to be in the district where they belong and out of our hair.
Okay, thank you. I have one last thing. Hopefully it's quick. It's just confirming what I think I know the answer is. So I want to give other people a chance. California doesn't have their court standing for our fourth pillar is not standing, and I have an issue with a state national that I want remedy for, and I think the only way that I think I can get remedy is to open my own court, since there's the other party's a state national in this matter, and since we don't have our courts up and running in California, I'm wondering if I can open my own court. And I was trained on this, learned some of this with the Sovereign's Way, some court stuff I took from these guys. And so I would open my own court, turn the judge into a magistrate, probably have to educate the clerk on what's going on. And then I think I'm going to have to give notice in the local paper because the other parties out of the state of California. And I think that's my only way to get into a court and get a decision upon giving evidence. And I'm wondering if I think, as you mentioned before, that the closest thing we have to an American common law court is the small claims court. And I'm thinking, since the money is it qualifies under that court, I think that'd be a more appropriate court to do this than a state superior court. Would that be correct?
Absolutely. Small claims is always preferable to any kind of magisterial or district or state of state court. They operate cleanly and fast in comparison, and the judgment you get is enforceable through the usual system. So, if it's under I forget what the limit for small claims in California is, but it's substantial. If it's under that limit, always take it to small claims.
Okay, and what happened in this also is theft. So there's money owed and theft, and so I think there would be it would go to a civil procedure, and I don't know the criminal. I'm not so interested in coming after somebody criminally. I don't know, but that I don't know what you could do with that. I think you have to talk to a U.S. attorney on that. Would that?
Well, it would wind up in district court, and probably nothing would come of it because that's just not. When the amounts of money are small, it doesn't even pay the filing fees in district court to enter a controversy that is cross state borders.
Well, it all happened in California, but the party's out of California.
Right.
Hey,
It's a
can
foreign
I
state.
interrupt?
Okay.
Can I interrupt? I don't mean to cut you off, but we still have 9 hands up, and I
Yeah,
don't.
that's fine. That's as far as I wanted to go with it. I didn't want to have a longer discussion. I understand. I yield. Thank you.
Thank you for your understanding. And also, Anna, how much time do we have with you tonight?
Until my voice gives out.
All right. Okay, we've got Lori is up next. Go ahead, Lori. And sorry, Lori, before we go on, I apologize if it's possible for everyone to keep the questions related to our state assemblies and standing up and coordinating our states and counties. That would be advisable. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Lori.
I had asked you, I believe last week, about the traffic court judge wanted more information on our assembly and stuff. And I haven't heard back from you. I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. But I had another question, and let me think of it. I saw I think it was a video. A lady had a piece of paper that she was showing on the camera, and it was basically a court order or something. Anyway, it was a citizen's demand to shut down that court. And I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. I wonder if we could do that from our assemblies. Just, hand them a paper and say, we're shutting you guys down. You were talking about the district courts being shut down anyway, but I didn't see the whole paper that she had there, just that front page. But I thought that was an interesting idea. I don't know if that would be feasible or admitted.
Well, this is going to be fought out at a very high level. It's being fought out now. In fact, part of it. The court system that we have is extremely corrupt. It's foreign. It is corporate. It is private. It's not a public court system. And it's been doing this repulsive, unjust activity in this country for 165 years. So they're entrenched, and entire generations of judges, clerks, and bailiffs have served in these courts thinking they were doing the right thing. So you've got people that they will look at you and they'll just say, and I've had this experience myself, they'll look at you and they'll listen to what you're saying, and then they'll say, well, I don't know about all that, but this is the way we do this, and this is the way we've always done it, and so that's the way we're going to continue to do it. And they're just operating with what they know. Now, this country has a long history of bounty hunters. And right now, as we speak, bounty hunters are being unleashed to seize upon these corporations in the jurisdiction of the air. So back during the Civil War days and the decades immediately after, the courts would issue bounties. This was admiralty language, remember? Bounties are admiralty. That's all seagoing stuff. And so I see you have a pooch.
Yes. She's been bugging me every time I get on a meeting. She wants outside or she wants to do this or that. She's got to distract me.
Right, mom's attention. Anyway, the courts, the district courts, the foreign invading admiralty courts, maritime courts, issued bounty, which is a privateer thing, against outlaws. And, you know, we've all seen the old movies where, you know, the U.S. Marshal rides into town and there's this lineup of guys that are bounty hunters. And you go into the court and the judge is sitting there and the bounty hunters drag in the paperwork that they turned in the corpse, or they turned over the prisoner to the marshal, and the marshal signs off on it, and the judge bangs his gavel on the bench and orders the payment, and you can collect your payment from the clerk, Mr. So-and-so. And this is something that the Admiralty and Maritime courts have always done, is to use bounty, which is an Admiralty and Maritime thing, to enlist the assistance of basically private bounty hunters to go out and arrest people in other jurisdictions. Basically snatch them off the street, hunt them down in the forest, or do whatever else is necessary to arrest them and bring them in. So we still have bounty hunters, and we have American Admiralty. So one of the things that's happening as we speak is that bounty hunting is being unleashed in the air jurisdiction. And what you're going to see is that these corporations are going to be dismantled by corporate bounty hunters. And what they're going to do is they're going to go in and they're going to identify who's running these corporations, and they're going to bring a form of suit, a bill against these corporations, and the receipts, which are going to be put through the new UCC small c 1 courts, will be returned. The bounty hunters will get a 20% commission.
Sounds like a good job. I should apply.
So this is one of the things, one of the ways that a lot of these different organizations that have been acting as predators will be bounty hunted. But this is an air jurisdiction thing. UCC, all UCC things are air jurisdiction. They're all commercial, and they all involve corporations. So you have to, in order to be a corporate bounty hunter, you have to be organized either as a government, which we are, or you have to be a corporation that is chartered by a government. So before you go off and start doing this stuff, make sure that you have the proper documents in place that allow you to do this. But anyway, this is happening, and these corporations are being cut down right and left for the things that they've done against people, for the trespasses of these corporations on individuals and companies. So this is starting, and we are still in the throes of dealing with the encroachment of the Admiralty and Maritime jurisdiction onto the land. And I fully expect that before this is over, we will have Americans that are operating under American Admiralty fully recognized and chartered to act as bounty hunters to go out and arrest these characters.
Sounds good.
Yeah, well, it's been a long time coming, and we need more people to do more of the work, more of the study, more of the research to get this all done. We have some very good resources. And we can do this, but we need more people and we need more organization and we need more researchers. Because, you know, admiralty law, American admiralty law has been replaced by British admiralty law. And we need to get our experts tuned up on American admiralty law so that we can also issue bounties to go collect their federal citizenry that are committing crimes on our shores.
Well, yeah, we had a question before too. Monday night, you said you had been working in a freezing office. Do you need help with the bills or something?
Oh, it's
What
my own,
feed
it's my
on?
own fault. It's my own fault. I keep my own expenses down to the bare bones so that I can afford to help the other people that are working as volunteers. And so it's my own fault. It's not that I couldn't buy a space heater, or, I couldn't increase the electrical bill. I'm just kind of thorny about keeping my own personal expenses down.
Are you stubborn, Anna?
I am stubborn, and the only thing that is my saving grace is that my sons are more stubborn than I am, just like their father. So every once in a while, they put their flat feet down and say, Mom, go to bed. Mom, you're staying home today. Mom, stop and eat something, So I do have my guardian angels who manage to somewhat keep me in line and within the realm of reason.
Well, good. At least there's somebody.
Yeah, Jim used to do that for me, and now that he's gone, the boys have stepped up. And as you saw Shannon come on and interrupt and put his hand up and be obstreperous, yes, they do say, no, damn it, you're going to go to bed.
Good job. Good job. I'd like to send my commendations to them for that.
Well, I did even better. I gave Shannon 2 days off so that he had a full 4-day weekend with his kids. So it's the first time he's had any appreciable time off in a year. So
Yeah, and we all know Anna hasn't really had a whole lot of time off, so we need to get all this stuff squared away so you can
That's
take
right.
some time off too.
That's right. I'm looking forward to the day when I can walk down the beach and just relax a little bit. So all you young people out there in America, you better get tuned up.
Yeah, pick up the cross.
That's it. The torch is going to be thrown here, and you better be ready to grab it and run.
Well, the
Amen.
basal banks are fixed. The basal thing is coming up. The banks are going to have to.
I think we have a hot mic.
That Josh's
I'm sorry.
iPhone?
I'm sorry, that's my
No, it was me.
my roommate is
Ah.
talking.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Well, we got to move along here, but good to talk to you, and we did cover some good stuff.
Well, and if you see that email I sent you, the subject line is traffic court. So,
Okay, I will look for that specifically.
okay, I yield. I'm sorry I took so long.
Okay, my next victim.
Thank you, Lori. The next one is Rocky. Go ahead, Rocky.
Well, I saw him waiting. He kind of.
Yeah, I'm always waiting for you. I like it though. In the paper or on the internet, whatever, we got an article saying that the BLM in Nevada is going to sell off our land to the Nevada State Corporation. What should we do about that?
Intervene.
How do we
Object.
intervene? I know we want to jack and whatever. Is there a certain letter or something we should send to the BLM?
Well, number one, you want to send them a certified copy of the action taken by the assemblies of the pre-Civil War states of the Union to enroll Nevada as a state of the Union.
Uh-huh.
And you want to shove that under all of the appropriate noses. And Terry can send you a certified copy. Every state in the Western states should definitely have a certified copy of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you need to go ahead and send that to the U.S. Secretary of State because it's a diplomatic issue. And it certainly wouldn't hurt to send a carbon copy to the Attorney General and to Donald Trump and to the Governor of Nevada and to the I'll look up some addresses for common law courts in the international venue that you can provide with the information.
Okay.
And
yeah, if you could forward that to us, it'd be great.
yeah, because they're going to try to do this and they can't do it. And this would be a good bounty hunter operation against the corporations that are trying to foist this off. If you can possibly also send the name of the corporation that is trying to sell it off and the corporation that's trying to receive it, that would help.
Okay.
We'll send bounty hunters after them and collapse those corporations quicker than cat. So let's just keep on this road of
Should all of this come from the State of the Union?
the State of the Union. Now, the big problem that you have in Nevada is that they don't know and they don't want to know that you've been enrolled as a State of the Union.
Okay.
So that's the information they need to get. And the county assembly can act as the county as the local government, right?
Uh-huh.
And if this is land in your county, you can absolutely prohibit them from selling any public property in the county. If it's a state issue, then you need to get Sue Hustlebus on the stick. You know, give her a good chart to fly at, and get the Nevada Assembly to issue the basically the demand to the governor and the U.S. Secretary of State.
Okay. Yeah, we got to figure out what land they're talking about and where it's at, that kind of stuff. We just got articles and stuff, and we didn't know what it was, what we should do or not, because we don't want them selling our land, not to anybody.
It's not theirs. There's the big point.
Right.
Now the other thing that you need to know is that there have been some really wild stories about pumping seawater into Nevada.
Okay.
And just, flooding part of Nevada with seawater from the Pacific Ocean. Does anybody know? Does anybody in Nevada know anything about this? Because it's
not about the seawater. No. We'll have to research on that too.
Yeah, that sounds like a completely whack job sort of thing that would kill the natural environment and the plants and animals in a fragile desert environment. So it's.
I'll get the resource committee to start doing research on it.
Right. Well, the Queen thinks that she owns all of the Western states that were not states prior to the Civil War, and she does not, because we followed through on the provisions of the Northwest Ordinance, and we enrolled them in 2020. So that door closed in 2020, and all of the Queen's henchmen need to get their filthy paws, including the Parliament, who should also be fully notified that our states have been fully enrolled as states of the Union, all 50 of them, and keep your paws off.
Right, exactly. The last thing I want to tell you is the last emails from me and you going back and forth. I haven't got any answer for logins to the LRO. And so I've been physically working on completing the Nevada LRO. I'll probably have it done this month. And that will be another revenue that we can use to record people.
Well, technically, you're just a soil jurisdiction assembly, so you can't do an LRO. Land recording office means the international land underneath. Okay,
Well,
so
if
you
it's
know,
for the State of the Union,
yeah, well,
can we?
if it's a union state, it's a local issue that is confined within the county.
Right.
So you can have a recording of an interest in land within the county, right?
Uh-huh.
You can have your own county recorder's office.
Right. Which we
Okay.
have.
And but each other county has to develop their own recorder's office, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as they develop their recorder's offices and they record interests in their land,
Uh-huh.
then they can maintain their own records, their own land records, which are sand, you know, the soil and the land are
Right. Exactly.
okay.
I know.
So
But
you'd want a county recorder's office and a county recorder's system.
right. But couldn't we have a State of the Union LRO?
You do have a State of the Union LRO.
And that's the current one now?
That's the one that the Nevada Assembly has and maintains. So if you want to volunteer, here's the confusion. Say that people mostly interact through the county assembly because you know they're more interested in local things and they don't have the interest, time, energy, whatever to get involved in the Nevada Assembly. Okay, but say that one of those folks that typically spends more time with the county assembly decides they want to act as a recorder because they want to help more people get on the land. Okay,
Right.
they have every right to become a recorder for the Nevada Assembly because they are also, by definition, members of the Nevada Assembly.
Right.
Okay, but when they're operating as recording secretaries, they're working as in their membership as a member of the Nevada Assembly, not their local county assembly.
Right.
Okay, so here's the problem. Apparently, Sue thinks that if you're a member of the county assembly, you're not a member of the state assembly. But in fact, you can be both and be perfectly fine, and that is because the land and the soil are in perpetual union. So you can put on your county assembly hat and deal with local issues, or you can put on your state assembly hat and deal with state issues, and it's all the same people. There's no
all the people that I know of in Nevada wants to do both. I mean, it's, you know,
you
it's
have interest.
Nevada's our land, you know,
Right.
and we need to help both. But
Yeah.
again, you know, we do, like you said, put one hat on for one and one on the other when we're doing, depending on what we're working on, right?
So yeah, so this is just a matter of Sue and the others recognizing that, you can be a member of a county assembly, and yes, you are still a member of the state assembly, and yes, you can work as a recording secretary, and yes, you can have a membership on the LRO. You can have a service portal, and record.
I'm just worried that in the Southern Nevada here, we're going to run out of actual LRO, recording secretaries, and we can't get any new ones through. So it's like we're going to be down to one person.
Yes, and that is not going to work because you're going to have millions of Nevadans.
I understand, and that's what I'm trying to gear up for, is to get ready for the influx. Right.
Yep. Well, if Sue is on this call, please take this to heart that yes, county assembly members are state assembly members, and yes, they can be they can work for a county recording office, and they can also work for the state LRO.
One of the ladies, Tamara, she's actually in Lisa's coordinator training. She wants to be a coordinator too. I've told you about her before, and she also wants to be a recording secretary. So she's been working with the state and Sue. That one should be a no-brainer. You know what I'm saying? Because she's already working in that capacity, right?
Right. There's no reason to, draw lines between county assembly and state assembly because it's all the same people, just wearing a different hat, working in a different jurisdiction.
Right. Anyway, I'm going to go because there's quite a few people and I don't want to get you too tired.
Okay.
Talk to you later. I yield.
Thank you so much, Rocky. Maziel.
Hi, Anna. Hi,
Hello.
Michelle. I want to thank you for your time, and I really appreciate you too. I also want to thank Anna for coming out tonight to the Florida Assembly to assist with the ongoing issues. My question tonight relates more still on how to build an assembly. Last week, we were told to put a point of order, and when we did, that wasn't recognized. And then they didn't allow us to move with that point of order, and they put up a situations report. How would you handle something like that? And there was no due process. It was slander, hearsay, and a lot of distortion. So I feel that I know you're going to assist with this process, but I think that this is a good question to ask because there are others here that are building an assembly that have similar issues going on in their state or their counties. To us, it's all about a proper due process. That's all we want, a due process, putting things on the table and communicating. And we have said that in a calm voice. We have said that peacefully. We have worked on using the How to Build the Assembly book. So I would also request too, Anna, I know that they're giving you our names and emails. We have emailed you personally, and I know you've been inundated, and we have a lot of compassion and love for you, and we know you work hard for us. So we never expected that you would individually just reply right away to us. But I think at this point, since you mentioned this is going to be ongoing, if we can have also a separate meeting to speak on this, because they already spoke on their end on what is going on through their eyes. I'm all about truth and transparency and actual and factual evidence. I work in the light. I stand in the light. I work in a pillar of light. And so that is something that I would like for you to consider when you address us, or if you send us an email or you give us a call. But I think this is really important question that needs to be answered is in building an assembly. You request a point of order. That was something that, Anna, you mentioned for us to do last week. It was disregarded. They already had pre-planned situations report that there was no due process. It was all hearsay and slander and distortion. And then we were just pulled out and they didn't allow us to have a voice while you were on. Thank you, and I yield.
Well, not allowing people to speak is a serious offense because it's your government. It belongs to all of you. Nobody has any special ownership interest in the government. So, everybody has an equal right to speak. And as long as they're being peaceable about it, they can express their opinions and ideas freely. That's what America is about. What Ralph very quickly explained to me this past week is that Florida's in a transition between coordinators and they are, in a position of trying to get things straightened out. So they were trying to slow everything down and gain a perspective, if you will, on what needs to happen and who's going to step up and how does that look. Many people are still under the impression, apparently a lot of people in Florida too, that the Federation chooses coordinators. No, coordinators are ASNs, they're volunteers from the state who lift their hand and say, okay, well, I'm willing to help my state get organized. I'll take the training and I'll have myself vetted. I'll agree to have my record vetted so that it's apparent I'm not a criminal, and then they become coordinators. And they work under our supervision. But no, we do not choose coordinators.
I'm sorry, can you clarify something, Anna?
Sure.
If you wanted to be a coordinator from the state, who would you send a letter to? Is that something that is sent to you?
You would just, let us know, let Federation employees, you could let Ralph know, you could let me know, you could let Shannon Bookie know, you could let Harold Hines know, you could let Terry Sam know, you could let Lisa Schaefer know, any of the current coordinators, you could let them know that you're willing to step up and take the training. and you can be a coordinator.
Now, I functioned, I recently stepped down from the Orange coordinator position because I recently relocated, but I'm also the militia secretary and the interim chair for the communications. Now they removed me and they banned me with nothing substantiated. I know why they did it. Because a lot of people, I'm the one holding the evidence under the militia pillar. And there were some certain things being moved. We're not going to put the dirty laundry out here because it doesn't belong here. And I was standing with PKTF and I was standing with you and I defended you a lot and I defended PKTF and I was working hard for the people and I kept getting shot down and they bullied one of my chairmen out of position and then they went to bully somebody else out and now this person's not even showing up to the meetings. So then that's how I became the interim chair and I was elected and they're saying that I wasn't. They were trying to use that to ban me. But it's because I do hold evidence for other people that were on the call that were removed. Evidence of slander and some other things in the no due process being heard. And I know you know our language because we speak the same language. Okay. I stand in a pillar of truth. I work in the light. I am in the light. I'm not here to hold any position that I don't need to. I'm here. I volunteered my time and I really wanted to work to stand Florida. And I'm still going to continue to work in that capacity, whatever way that I can to assist in all of us moving forward in a united way. None of us are saying that Ralph didn't do a good job before. Nobody's saying that the state didn't put us up to a certain level, right? Or provide certain level of education. But some place along the way in the past year or God knows how long, but in front of my eyes, distortions came and a lot of other things that were creating chaos and confusion. And when that happens, it's because something is definitely out of alignment and needs to be addressed. And all we are asking is for communication. All we are asking is for a fair due process. And that was violated. So in moving forward, we did try the point of order. And I think that since you are going to be assisting and you're going to be asking other Federation members to step forward to come on as a team, we should be giving sufficient time because an hour is not going to be sufficient time. Week by week is not to truly hear what is going on, and to also provide the evidence to show why things have turned. And I did notice everyone is a reflection of each other. I did notice that, but at the same time, the commonality is everybody has a conviction and love to stand in Florida. Okay, but because of the distortions and the slander and the failure of due process, this is what created all this, and it wasn't addressed. And I am speaking as a neutral person. I'm not here to point fingers. I'm only here to be a voice. I work in a militia capacity. I'm here for emergency response. I'm here to serve. I am a servant to the people, and I feel passionately about that. I am totally aligned in the heart alignment of the information you have provided. And how to build the assembly and working together. And we never came to you with complaints. We just worked on it because you always said work within your assembly, try and figure it out. And we know you're a busy woman. We know that we need to learn ourselves. So, that's where we stand. And I hope that we do get some time with you as a group as well. So those addresses and then peacefully, then it could come and it can get resolved because there's more communication, there's a mediation, and there's a fair due process too in that. Thank you. Thank you for hearing me and giving me this time. I really do appreciate you.
Well, we'll be doing some Zoom meetings with everybody, and we'll be attending the assembly meetings, and we'll be talking to Ralph, and we'll be trying to get down to the bottom of this.
Thank you, and thank you for your time. And I'm sorry that you did have to get pulled into this. Because I know you're really busy and everything that you've been through and what you're putting together too with global and everything else and being the liaison to so many things. But you do have a team here and you have a large team of volunteers. Are you ready to help on a federation level or a bank level, whatever you need? We're here and we put our hands up. Okay. We love you. We love the assembly. We love the men and women. We're going to make this work. This is going to work. It is hard to line in place in the right place. Stanley firming in the ground. Right? It's going to work. And we believe that wholeheartedly. And that's why we haven't quit. This is why we don't quit, because we believe this in our heart. We believe it spiritually. We have the embodiment of it, and I believe a lot of people that are here on the call, that's why we're here tonight. And we're here to make that difference. And we will. And we are shifting to the higher vibration, to the new earth. We're already anchored in it. And we are anchored in the new earth. And A lot of people here. I'm grateful for you guys, and thank you again.
You know, it just came up in the chat that we have been indoctrinated to silence those that oppose some aspect of something. So one of the things we'll be looking at in Florida is, what are they trying to accomplish? You know, why is it important to silence anyone? Right? So we'll be digging and we'll get down to the bottom of it, and it will all get resolved.
Thank you. Have a beautiful night, and everyone here. Thank you so much.
Take
Big
care.
hugs and kisses.
Thank you, Maziel. Now, Carmen was up next, but I see that she put her hand down. So next we have Gerda on British Columbia. Go ahead, Gerda.
Yes, hello everyone, and hello Anna. Thank you so much for all you do. My question, just recently we've been trying on Canada and British Columbia to learn more about our own history, as you recommended previously. And recently we've been learning more about the Treaty of Westminster of 1931. Which we understand freed the provinces individually and collectively from the crown. And we're wondering if you know about this treaty and if you think that's a good thing for us to follow to straighten out some of the situations we're dealing with.
Well, the treaties of Westminster are a series of treaties, and they go way far back into history and way forward into history. So what they're basically dealing with is a specific jurisdiction and specific relationships. So the thing that you have to look at in the Treaties of Westminster series is how they're defining the crown. And so what I would ask you to do, Gerda, is to send me a copy on email of the document that you're looking at, so that I have an opportunity to actually look at, words on paper and be able to answer your question better. Because just like the Treaty of Paris, the Treaty of Paris series is about maritime issues, and the treaties of Versailles are about land issues. The treaties of Westminster have their own peculiarities and their own.
I'm sorry, I'll just say, I think I misspoke. I meant Statute of Westminster.
Okay, but still send it to me.
Okay, yes, absolutely. Lovely. Will do. Thank you so much. I yield.
Okay, dear.
Thank you so much, Gerda. It's always good when we have an opportunity to look at the different treaties, and we're an international family. Okay, next up is Marianne. Go ahead, Marianne.
Hi. Anna, Gran, and Nana, our fiduciary, with all the love in the world and utmost respect. I wish I could meet you under different circumstances. I do not have good news, and I'm very sorry for that. I do have a couple questions, and I hope we can make this as brief. And I am very sorry. I should have brought some of this attention to you back at the end of December, or at least by that. And I felt things were getting situated because our coordinator on Indiana was stepping down. She had sent us an email, so I've kind of left it at that. But I know for a fact, and I have plenty of proof for you, we've been infiltrated, severely sabotaged intentionally. And it's been a red flag since I became status corrected. And I've observed many things going on. However, because I was now I'm very much awake. Just to kind of give you a short thing on me, you are have much more wisdom than I will ever have. And I kind of refer to you also as my sister from another mama and papa, but we solemnly share the longest day in history, D-Day. You get me?
Yep.
I'm very much awake, been around military all my life. I've raised 2 Marines myself. I lost one overseas. I'm a Gold Star Marine mom from my oldest. I did not serve, but I'm very much supportive, and I have a lot of military knowledge. So I was elected in October as our Indiana State Assembly Militia Commander. Now, I do have to redo some training for myself to re-educate myself. There's a lot that I've forgotten, and I have a lot of health issues. And I have said to everyone, I'm not a leader. I am here to help us lead us to where we need to be. As you well know, I love our country. I love the country I thought we were all living under. And I do fight with my life. That kind of give you an idea. I'm on life support, and I'm the one that goes up against the electric company. I just went through 35 days with no heat, well, very limited heat. In January, they shut my gas off and threatened to shut the power off. But that I held them with that through threatening, all of our $1 trillion fines. But in a nutshell, I had little electric heaters. And just so you know, speaking of electric heaters, with you doing it in a cold, you young lady, and I'm going to speak on behalf of all 50 of our nation states, don't you dare be sitting over there with very limited heat because you are frugal and want to still help us. We get it. You are doing more than anything ever possible. Thanks, it could never be enough for you. Please make sure you have adequate heat. We do not want you ill. We need you well. So if we need to step up and send more donations, so be it. And I realize you want to share that and everything, but we need you well, sweetheart. So please make sure you've got adequate heat for yourself. And we want to make sure you get adequate rest more often too. And I know that's hard, but please, we need you well. We want to see you when we're standing up our Capitol. We want to see you happy, well, and little restful a little bit, at least as much as you can. So with that being said, I need to know what you need to show evidence of all this infiltration. And on a nutshell of it, this was brought forth at the beginning of December. Basically, her and I have been bumping heads, and I would call her out on things. I'm the one who will never walk away, and I let her know that from day one. There will be no infiltration under my watch. Not going to happen. Now that I know what literally has happened, and I've been awake for 16 years, very much all my life with a lot of corruption. But 16 years, I've learned all this stuff and beyond it. I'm awake far more to a lot more than what the majority of people are. So at any rate, with that said, and I let our assembly know when I started being at our GA meetings, again, I'm not the leader. I'm here to help lead us to where we need to be. And I've also let them know my own agenda for our assembly, where I'd like us for us to be. And that, again, there'll be no infiltration. I'm not going to tolerate it. I'm an analyzer type of person, and I look at everything. And like you, we all have a voice, and I like to hear everybody's voice. Our coordinator was not like that, and I've observed that as well when I'm in other meetings and trying to learn some other training, just so that I'm not a rat here, ratting out everybody. I'm not going to be that one. But honey, you have several different nation states that are not on board with our Federation guidelines. And not everybody is like that. I'm just going to say there are people within the nation states. They are not following it. They're doing their own thing. And I'm just going to let you be aware of that on how you can handle that to bring that attention to where, look, this is the rules and this is the way it is, or get the hell out.
I will happily do that to any coordinator who is not following instructions on organizing their State of the Union, and they will be out of there quicker than cat shit. So anybody who comes forward and tells me in good faith and is willing to, stand there and accuse them, and we give them an opportunity to correct. If they don't correct, they're gone.
I think that's not just our coordinators. Like I said, there's a couple other people within that when we have it. And I'm not going to rat 8 individuals because I'm not there all the time. I'm just only observing what I see at that moment, things that happen. And then I do listen to other people's on everybody. So I'm kind of standing up for everybody because I am also our liaison pro tem for right now, because it's only been her, it's been Christine, and it's been I. We've had a few people that they started trying, but if 5 years you don't have people standing on roles or duties, there is something wrong.
Right.
It took me a few months to get her to start making some changes. And she is not the coordinator. She stepped down December 31st. We have a new coordinator that has been training with Lisa. I just now got to meet her this past Sunday. We had our initial, a get together, get to know people, some of us, with what we can work with. I was not aware of the situation that is having between with Lisa and Bonnie to get all of our records appropriately. What Bonnie has explained to me is she does have a case of files. Well, I've recently been going through things. I never got any member list until November. Now, that was after Lisa had been there as a special guest. And bless her heart, she had shared her time only to wind up being there with just a couple people. And I didn't make a big ordeal, but I was a little embarrassed because I'm about, if you're going to invite a guest and other issues that come upon that, you want to have some people there so we can all discuss and show our progress. Any rate, not to keep babbling on about this, but it became evident December 1st, I threw a fit and finally put my foot down and said, enough of the sabotaging, not going to tolerate any more of the BS. And where that all circulated was from me not agreeing to meet with Tammy Healy and doing a big podcast interview, because it was only her and I by then still. And I'm like, well, we need to get some more people on board. And that kind of ticked her off. And two, ever since the summer, shortly after I status corrected, come in, my ideal, because I used to always have an excellent repertoire with our sheriffs. Now, I do know that the way they're not aware of our American government. So my idea, because we don't have Sheriff Reeves, and I observed it just in the little amount of time when I was bouncing around training for other nation states, they're very shorthanded as well. So my idea was, how about I put together some information packets using various degrees of your articles? And I've been seeing your articles for a decade, but I didn't come onto your site. I would see them here or there. And I'm seeing Alaska, fiduciary, and I'm thinking, okay, she's just got an opinion. And I was like, that's pretty good. We got at least somebody standing up. And I'm seeing a lot of Grandma Anna stuff. Well, I go by Grambo Warrior. And so I didn't think too much of it. I'm like, oh, she's out here. I said, you go. But I did not know until October 2024 that I know we've been infiltrated on all levels, except I did not know our actual government was fully usurped upon until October of 2024, which just so happens to be the month of land law declared. You had a wonderful article outlining all the similarities of the various names, how our fraudsters, subcontractors, usurped upon us and have been masquerading around as our rightful government. That right there pulled all my research and everything together. And so, needless to say, fast forward, it didn't take long. And February, I started to status correct, and the first red flag was I couldn't get in. I have a snapshot of the Federation, TASA, responding to me with my information, trying to contact the coordinator. And I have that response to the email. My coordinator will follow up with me soon. Almost 2 months later, it took me to finally track down the assembly, 2 days to figure out how to contact her email, because she had it blocked with a clean talk. She's very paranoid. Well, I found to come out why. She is, and I learned this after December, back in January. I did more research. I went on her website. She runs a website, and some of that was running through our tools that we use on the assembly. Now, she also makes a profit off of all this status correcting. I've learned all this since, mind you. She works, Anna, and I don't know, so let me, before I go off on that, does the Federation for all of our nation states handle the websites, all of our assembly websites? Or is that each assembly website is responsible for their own?
Each assembly is ultimately responsible for their own. We do offer kind of a training wheels function that, like the LRO, is a training wheels function where you can use a template to build a state assembly website. But ultimately, the state assemblies do have their own websites. Many of them have pretty sophisticated websites now because the volunteers built them,
Okay. I know that she works. I couldn't understand why she would get so panicky and paranoid when I asked her questions. You can ask her any question except ask her what she's doing, and she will go ballistic on you. And I'm not exaggerating that. Finally found out when I'm searching her website, and I don't know if she's what do you call those? Not a subcontractor, but when people are doing a side business for other companies. There's a word I'm trying to think and I can't spit it out, Anna. Sorry for that. So like we don't call that moonlighting.
Moonlight.
Yeah, it's similar to moonlighting, but there's another name that I'm thinking about. Anyway, she's working for this company that does networks. And so that would make sense why it's behind our assembly. But they are listed out of Chicago. Their address is definitely Britain. So, I mean, it put up a red flag to me when I'm researching more of this. And like I said, I couldn't get a definite answer on how our nation states, when I was asking around to a couple people, who handles that. But if she's also doing business for them while they're offering, while they're handling our assembly network, there's something more wrong there. Now, here's the biggest part. Now, as I said, and Bonnie Grissom is our new coordinator, and she sounds so far, if she's what I caught a glimpse of Sunday, her and I can solve this issue with many of our other assembly members. Many of them walked away because of her. They didn't want to, she wouldn't let them do anything and carry on about what needs to be done. And like many other have voiced their opinion here, you know, when you have a coordinator that's not allowing your ASCs to speak or follow through with what their roles or duties are, it becomes an issue. To my knowledge, we only had 2 types of recording secretaries that were there and up and left within 2 weeks, and we had a marshal at arms very temporarily, and he left. And then I've been the next one, the only one other person here that's been actually following through, and that's only because she knew I wasn't going anywhere.
Let me interrupt here for a moment.
Yes.
This is something I need to repeat. The Federation does not choose coordinators. Okay? Coordinators are volunteers. They work under Federation supervision, but we do not, it's not like we go out and choose these people. So if you have a coordinator who isn't doing the job, if you have a coordinator who isn't following the roadmap, you know, that we've laid down in how to build an assembly and America's Some Assembly Required podcast and the information that Lisa is teaching, then by all means, raise your hand and we'll get a new coordinator. It's that simple. If you've got coordinators who aren't letting you speak, if you have coordinators that aren't letting you vote, if you have coordinators who are not allowing you to organize committees, if you have coordinators who are standing in the way of any progress whatsoever, raise your hand and flag it. We will go talk to that person. We will find out what's going on from their perspective. We'll get back to you. We'll work it out so that there's communication. There has to be a flow of communication in which questions get answers and answers then lead to taking action, proper action, that is. And that's the way the whole system is designed, so that when you are in this assembly process, the coordinator is supposed to be a go-between. And if your coordinator is not getting your state organized and you're not seeing progress and people are being silenced, that's a red flag. If you are, if your coordinator is not taking action, if your coordinator is speaking against the Federation and trying to confuse people with the idea that the Federation is the same as the federal government, or trying to promote the idea that the Federation has any interest in unduly interfering in your operations or anything like that, raise your hand. We do not need people who are ignorant and who will not, you know, do the work. We don't want people in there who are not serious and committed to assembling their State of the Union. We don't want people that are oppressive and controlling, because this is everybody's public government. It's not their government, it's everyone's government. You all have a stake in it. And so if you're having trouble with coordinators, the place to come is here, my desk. Now, we've had lots of issues with coordinators because, of course, they're all walking in off the street just like anybody else. And until recently, our coordinator training was not beefed up as it is now. We didn't have a program like the coordinators are going through right now, getting their feet underneath them. So, you know, a lot of mistakes were made and a lot of extra work had to be put in and things had to be corrected and adjusted. It doesn't necessarily mean that your coordinator is evil or an infiltrator. It can also mean that they're scared. You know, at the beginning of this, we had quite a few people that were terrified. They thought they were signing their lives away just to stand up and claim their own birthright. So, but, you know, we've been here for 5 years and we intend to be here for 10 years and 50 years and 100 years after this. So, you know, my mother used to say, no guts, no glory. You know, if you don't have if you don't have the chutzpah to stand up for yourself and claim your own property back, then you probably don't deserve to have any property. You know? So anyway, you said at the beginning that you had 2 questions, and I haven't heard any questions really. What were the 2 questions that you had, Marianne?
Thank you for all that, and I agree. Just to let you know, if I can finish up that, if I may, the biggest thing, and again, Bonnie and I can handle a lot of this, but I just want you to be aware. We have files that are in complete disarray. And when I'm saying disarray, many of the documents that have been received, some like for ASCs, they will use the common carry to declare their, you know, what their political status would be per se, you know, an American state national or American state citizen. And she has documented ASCs as ASN, ASNs as ASCs. I was trying to go into the LRO recently to look for, I just did my first 2 militia meetings to let you know, and they were very informal. It was just us coming together, laying out the dirty work that's happened and reminding people we've got new changes, new faces, time to step up and get the work done. With that being said, some of them asked me questions where they're at on their paperwork, blah, blah, blah. I have come across one so far, because I haven't done a lot of digging, this is only now, to where we have one ASN isn't even listed on the LRO. And I have used different variations of his names to try and see. He is not on there. And then, as I said, and then some documents that are on the LRO, including some of mine, they have not been uploaded. Some of my 3 sets of my documents, which were very thick. I have 2 sets that are 33 pages and 1 set that is 42 or 45 pages. And she only did 3 pages stating that there wasn't enough room to get it up on there, which I found that, oh no, there was plenty of room. So, and there's several right now within 7 individual people, there's issues with all of their paperwork. Some people have the right paperwork up on there, and some of it's not up on there. So I know between Bonnie and I, we can sort all this out, but I just want you to be aware of it. It is in complete disarray. And I have not had any proper financial documents. She has stated that she has a wealth of experience on schooling, and that's out of Washington, D.C. I actually called it Google licensing. But anyway, so I just wanted you to be aware of that. Or the 2 questions. I'm sorry, honey.
Let me make a suggestion that you, at the earliest possible opportunity, next meeting of the assembly, call for a secretary, call for someone who's willing to, you know, help with the record keeping and for the assembly, specifically for the assembly, which includes the black and white copies of the declaration documents. And actually the declaration documents are only 3 documents and, you know, maybe a baby record, something like that. We've had trouble with a kind of a group misunderstanding. There have been several people where, you know, they want to upload lots and lots of documents and things onto the LRO. And that's, for example, court documents. Or they want to upload an entire set of 928s. Things of this nature. What really needs to happen is that the individual assemblies develop their own record keeping for their assembly, and they will eventually all have their own land recording offices too. But for right now, the primary purpose of the LRO is to do the declaration paperwork, any baby paperwork, you know, announcing new babies, and you know, verifying them, and what, you know, maybe business claims, you know, that you've started a new business and you're operating in the land jurisdiction as an unincorporated entity, so you want to record your new business that's an unincorporated business. Those are things that the LRO can handle. But for example, your jural assembly will have its own set of records. It will have all of its court documents, and all that stuff will go under the jural assembly record keeping system. The militia will have its own record keeping system. The Treasury and Bank Committees will have their own record keeping system. So some of these documents, there's no place to go with them at this point because the assemblies have not developed those additional record keeping systems. And just because the LRO exists doesn't mean that that's the appropriate place to put the document. And so when assemblies are just getting started and Indiana has been slow in developing, and so it's still kind of lagging behind all the rest of the crew.
Now you know why.
You know, I'm sorry to hear that. But the thing to do is to have an assembly secretary actually, you know, have someone who's committed to keep the assembly records and to keep these records that should go to a juror assembly recordings, you know, or a, you know, keep those records for the assembly.
Right. We're working on that. We're working on that. I want to clarify something. You said something very important here. You said the 928s. Are you saying that those of us, this goes for many, that have done the full set of 928s, all of those should not be up on the LRO?
Well, traditionally oh, there comes Lisa.
I looked at that as like a regular, because that's our regular documents for our status correcting.
Yeah.
So may I, Anna?
Sure.
So I know that there was some confusion on Indiana by the former coordinator who believed that only 928s validated that all Indianans had to have 928s.
That's also true.
And what she later learned as she was starting to take some work in the assembly and learning a little bit more about assembly itself, and the fact that you had stated that really the 1779 and two witnesses 1779 Declaration of Political Status, it's really all one needs to be status corrected. And so 928s, not saying they aren't great, that there isn't use for them. And they, you know, for anybody that steps up into publicly elected office, it's kind of a good way. As I've told Anna, and Anna laughs when I say this, is 1779 is like putting a breastplate on, but 928s are like putting a full suit of armor on, right? And if you need them, it's great that they're done. Doesn't mean that they have to be done right up front, you know, and as they're needed, they can't be done. So it's not a barrier to your assembly. And it shouldn't be a barrier to participating on your assembly, okay? And there was some great deal of confusion in that, that only just begun to get straightened out. So I know that Bonnie, she actually goes by her nickname Missy. I know that Missy's going to get that straightened out. We're working on it. I'm working to try to get her trained for recording secretary function as well. And then that way we can try to get some people reactivated on Indiana for recording secretary. So she's just getting all of her feet on the ground after having a lump dropped on her, and she will get there. So,
right. That is what I agreed with that. It's nothing her and I can't do, you know, handle with bringing in everybody else into our assembly and getting everyone else on board. And thank you, Lisa, for that. If you can clarify, could you be able to help? The biggest, and that was my question for Anna, was this has been an ongoing, and according to who I speak to on whatever nation state, everybody has a different opinion. Now I have 26 articles that Anna has written that specify the difference between an ASN and an ASC. Now I've let everybody know, you know, even we're all equal. We're still equal, and an ASC is our lawful person. But the difference is we are the ones who make the decision on those service contracts for international purposes, as well as some of our roles require you to be in that ASC standing per se with the lawful person.
So let's pick that apart right there. Okay.
Thank you.
So first of all, a lot of people thought, you know, that all I had to do is declare I am an ASC, and they're an ASC, right? Bing. Here I am.
Yeah, no.
Okay. So what that means is you're actually active on your assembly, participating in committees, being a committee chairman, really being active within the assembly. You're on a juror, you've signed up for juror duty, you're on the militia, you know, you're active, okay? You might not be in an elected position, but you're active within the assembly, right? You don't have any conflicts of interest, and you don't have anything that's you know, a professional license that's going to cause you an issue. otherwise you're eligible to be an ASC. You just have to be active. Okay. ASNs are everybody else that wants to, sit in the background. And even though they might be eligible to be a citizen, when they are just sitting back in the background and they get called into jury duty, now suddenly they have taken a role on. And now you can say that for that time being, while they're sitting as a juror, they're an ASC and take them down. Now, this might be a shock to everybody, but I don't put much stock in the LRO designation of citizen or national because most people don't know the difference. And there's quite a bit of information. It's incorrect on the LRO. Okay. Some states chose to put their people up there as citizens who did their 928s, but those citizens were never active on their assembly. So are they really citizens, right? So this is kind of the quandary between the two. Okay. And I wouldn't put too much stock in that. I wouldn't get too hung up on that because that'll change over time. You're going to be able to change that slowly and get everybody active. Okay. So give it a little time. Everything will get righted on Indiana. You'll be right as rain. Okay.
Well, I've got no doubt. I'm just trying to clarify. I'm trying to clarify so I stay close as I can to our guidelines, our Federation guidelines. That's all. With another one, but I know veterans can take roles. However, I have a veteran very interested in becoming a sheriff. Is that allowed? Our Sheriff Reed?
Sure.
Let me butt in here for just a second for everybody's information who's still on the call. And it's getting very late for people on the East Coast. The history is that the 928s were developed as armor for our first coordinators, so that if they were attacked by the de facto machine, that they would have plenty of ammo already established on the public record that would prove their intent and would stand for them in the event that they were attacked. We moved through that stage. We established who and what we are, what we're doing, why we're doing it, and our right to do it. Okay. So unless you're in a particularly exposed position, it's unlikely that you would ever need or want to complete the entire 928 package. And what generally we went to was the declaration and a couple of witnesses, because that is more than sufficient to establish your intent. Okay, so we did that change about what, 4 years ago, and the word still hasn't gotten out. That if you are just if you're an average person and you're not, serving as a living target for NSA prods and that sort of thing, there's no reason that you should have to go through the entire 928 series. Now, everybody should look at the 928 documents and determine whether there's something there that you individually need. And the obvious example is that if you have a child under the age of 21 and you want to protect that child and you want to claim that child so that you're not having to hassle with CPS or something, you'd better pick out that baby record and establish a baby record. But, there are 928 documents that apply to only a few people, and there are some that apply to other people. So look through the 928s, pick out those that you need, and ignore the rest. It's just kind of practical.
Anna, may I?
Yes.
With this, and as Lisa, thank you again for clarifying. On these, which I have read that as well, on what everybody's pushing, I've seen that where you've noted 1779 and the 2 wits. Now, my understanding is there still needs to be that sent to the SOS on the state and as well as DC and the consular. There's got to be 3 copies there at the cover. Are they sending that 1779, or is that going to be with the DOPS?
Well, we're going to look at that, but the real thing that the U.S. Secretary of State office needs is your declaration of your intent to be and remain a a national but not a citizen of the United States, and a national of the pre-Civil War state of, in your case, Indiana. Those states that were not states pre-Civil War, that you are then going to say that you want to be a national but not a citizen of the United States, and that you are a national of the recently enrolled state known as Nevada. And you want to send a certified copy of the enrollment action, which we have documented at the TASA website, and, you know, get the message out there that, hey, we've joined the world again. We have been formally enrolled as a state of the Union. Here we are. But anyway, you want to get that message that under oath or under affirmation, that you have duly declared in the presence of witnesses. A notary public is ideal, so long as you note where you're doing the notary public. You're not in the state of anybody. You're in Nevada, for example, right? That you're duly declaring your lifetime status and intention to be a national but not a citizen of the United States, and are a birthright national of the either pre-Civil War state known as California, or the pre-Civil War state known as Wisconsin, or the formally enrolled state known as Nevada as of October 1st, 2020. Now, you want to get the point across that you're living in a state of the Union. You're not living in a state of state. You're not living in a trust. You are a barefoot American.
Correct. Thank you for that. If I can just one more quick thing. I'm asking on behalf of all 50 nation states and all of us, because of all of our love for you, can you please put your arms around yourself and squeeze tight, sweetheart? Huge hug from all of us. Huge.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. And I'm sorry it took a little bit more, but there's things you needed to know. How should I email you? Email Shannon? What would you like me to send to you?
If it's a militia issue, email Shannon. If it's a civil issue or a just a general population issue or a historical fact or need that Indiana has, email me directly. If it's a banking issue, please email.
No, on what I've discussed with you tonight. What would you like me to send you? Where, email you directly? What would you like me to send you?
Well, most of the things that we talked about tonight, I think will get resolved here within a short period of time as Missy comes on board and finishes her coordinating.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just talking about evidence, why proof on why I said what I said, because it's very important. It's serious stuff. And I took a good week before I was making a decision, because I did bring some of this to Joe's attention with PKTF.
Well, if it's an issue between the Assembly, PKTF, or the Continental Marshals, if it's an issue of law, if it's an issue of crime or anything like that, you should send it to the Continental Marshals. And in order to get that sorted out properly.
No. I don't want you to misunderstand. I'm sorry. I did not mean to interrupt you. I don't want you to misunderstand. Not an issue between them. It was, I thought I needed to go through the PKTF before it goes to you. So I had brought to him what was going on in the Assembly.
No, the PKTF is a networking organization. And their work is to network together the state militias, the county
right
sheriffs, the state of state police, everybody that is supposed to be here taking care of the people.
Right.
And so that's their role. If there's an actual crime, you can send it, if it's interstate, send it to Paul Pappas. If it's intrastate, it goes first to your oversight committee. And if the oversight committee then moves on it, then the next step is to send it to us, to me, and then I will try to sort out what kind of an issue or complaint it is and where it belongs in terms of getting a resolution.
I just didn't know if you wanted, to take things any further, because there was some other stuff that was, just have I don't want to keep holding your time. Thank you so much. As far as our assembly, you're going to see action happening. Good stuff. Good stuff. The next time I talk to you will be good stuff.
Okay, we want good stuff.
Thank you so much. I yield.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Mary Ann. And before I go to Dorothy, we did have someone 786-7874 that had their hand up, but fell off the call and I think came back on. Are you still on? Wanting to ask your question? You were
might have fallen off because it's getting so late on the East Coast.
okay.
And the Midwest.
He was in the waiting room, Michelle. I don't know if he's still in the waiting room.
Oh, no, there's nobody in the waiting room.
Okay.
No. Okay, let's go to Dorothy. Thank you, Dorothy. Thank you for your patience. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I don't gonna keep you all long. Hi, Anna. I'm happy I can talk to you again. I just wanted to have 100% clarity. So the 1779 will actually be the declaration with the witnesses that will be recognized, recorded, and seen as you have declared yourself to be alive. So the 928 pack will be only what you need. Do I hear this correct? So we on Africa will actually have that in a way to feel, okay, we did the 1779. That will be the pack that will be seen and recorded in the fullness in that.
Right. That and I guess the declaration of intent is all that's ever needed under international law for any kind of circumstance that you could have. The 928s, like I say, were developed as a full body armor for those that were going into the fight from the very beginning in terms of, establishing who we are and what we were doing. We came under a lot of scrutiny and we had a lot of FBI kind of operations that were designed to infiltrate and mischaracterize us and all sorts of ugly stuff that the early people endured. And so the 928s came about as armor in that environment. And it's, for average folk that are not out front and center, it's overkill. So,
I'm sorry. If our people did the 1779 and they actually want to train with international, let's say for the secretary training that runs with Diana, just for instance, this is example, it is not a must to have then the 9 to 8 being done if currently Africa has the situation on certain states. So the 1779 would be sufficient then for us to train for the secretary training and the other parts of training.
Why not? Because, all you're really trying to establish is your identity has been stolen. So you're trying to reestablish your identity and you're trying to declare where you came from and what your birthright is. And you want to declare your intention in terms of, I'm claiming my stuff. This is who I am. This is where I come from. And, it's my intention to remain a Zimbabwean for the rest of my life. These sorts of statements are important in terms of just establishing a ground base of identity again after a long period of having your identity stolen. So this is why.
So with us, specifically for the recording secretaries and notaries, that is the specific, let's be like on that. So that will be okay for them to just have a 1779 and they'll be accepted to train internationally and not being put where, oh, you did not do your 9 to 8s. It's just me wanting to have 100% clarity on that with the recording secretaries to get them trained internationally. That's a big thing for me at this point.
Right. Well, the 928s haven't been required for 4 years. So,
Thank you.
anybody who's telling you otherwise is wrong.
Oh, thank you for that. I appreciate it, Anna. And then also, this is my last thing. I don't know if Lisa is still up here. You informed me on one of our calls up here that I needed to ask the South Africa coordinator for the recordings of the coordinator training that you are running currently, because there's just a certain amount of seats available. Up until now, I have not received one recording from the coordinator here to share it between the Africa states, different states on the coordinators for them. So I've asked not once, but twice, and she still hasn't come back to me to actually share the recordings with the other Africans. I'm just informing because for me, I don't think that is how a coordinator should respond in that manner.
Well, when I see her tomorrow, Dorothea, I will mention it and let her know that it's okay to share it. So I'll address it specifically.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Lisa. Thank you, Anna. Thank you all. Love and light.
Take care.
Awesome.
All right,
Thanks.
guys.
We're going to
did
wrap
it.
it up, Anna. Wait, but before we do, really quick, can you say one word about Taleesman? For non-status corrected people, are they allowed to be jurors?
Well, it's okay. This is a county court thing. It comes out of the county courts, and we don't have very many county courts stood up yet. But when an ASN is not active in their assembly, but they're eligible to be an assembly member, you can go out on the street, find someone who's willing to assist and to take the basic, I am a Californian, and it's my intention to remain a Californian of the pre-Civil War California. They give their basic info, their name, where they live, that sort of thing. And then they can stand in as a juror for the stated designation for the jurisdiction, that they're a member of that community in that state, and that they're willing to serve as a juror under common law. So you can go out and you can actually find more people than you've got on your jury assembly and kind of drum them in at the county level so that they can fill a jury pool. That is something that has been allowed traditionally under common law for many generations, and especially British common law, because they couldn't always get enough jurors to serve on their courts either. Now, the danger of doing that is you want to get real people. You want to explain what you're doing so that they understand what you're doing. And you want to secure their honest agreement that, that they can serve in this capacity and they're willing to serve in that capacity, and that they understand what it means to serve in that capacity. So I mentioned that in regard to a very specialized case. It was the case of Jerome Daly against the Montgomery Bank in Minnesota, which is a famous landmark case in our law that was delivered by a county court. And in that case, the judge, Judge Mahoney, was operating as a justice of the peace at the county level, and he didn't have enough jurors signed up for the jury pool. So he basically went out in the community and allowed the the court officers to bring in enough talesmen to complete the jury pool. So that's what sparked all of that interest. That is not an easy, recommended, or happy way to fill a jury pool. The way that you want to fill your jury pool is by getting enough members so you have an active jury pool and an active court. They were just desperate to actually get the issues out and to have a working court in that particular case, and they managed to do it by putting together a jury that included talesmen. And I think we have our long lost caller that gave up on us.
Oh, thank you for that explanation, Anna. I just wanted everyone, there was a lot going on in the chat regarding jurors and if it's required to be status corrected to be a juror. And are you okay to take one more question?
This guy has waited faithfully this entire time. So yes, I will go the extra mile.
God bless you, Anna. Okay, 813-786-7874. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name's Robert Jacob. I'm in Florida. Where do I start? You threw a lot of stuff at us today. The seawater in Arizona, it falls right in line with something I saw on an Ariana Masters video where she was interviewing a guy that had was a chemtrailer, and among other things, she said that she had uncovered a situation where Bill Gates was apparently paying to have trees cut down in California and go have them buried in Arizona to sequester the CO2. You also piqued my interest with regards to what your statement about UCC being in the air jurisdiction. But the question that I'd like answered is, am I on the right track when I look at how our constitutions have been formed in all the states and with the government, at the federal level, that when they talk about the assembly, they are talking about the legislative side of our branch of the government being the Congress and Senate houses, and that through separation of powers, nobody is supposed to have an office in two different branches or more of the government. That when we look at our assemblies, as they are right now, my sense of things in the fledgling state that we're in is that the assembly, the General Assembly, the floor, is acting in the capacity of our congressmen and senators, since we haven't arrived at that point of having congressmen and senators at the moment. So that would be the legislative side, as should be separated from the judicial side. Am I correct in my interpretation?
Doesn't apply to us. We're not under the constitutions. Our employees are under the Constitution.
Point taken.
It's a different structure and different form of government. And we have to learn how it works from the ground up. And that's what's so difficult. You're correct about all the federal citizenry and about the federal subcontractors. What you say is exactly true, and there is a separation of powers doctrine. But at the state assembly level, we function in a multitude of different guises and roles, and it's part of our community government structure. We do start to see separation of powers in that we have separate jurisdictions that we operate in. And, there are, there's the distinction between ASNs and ASCs, right? But the things that people commonly think of in terms of the governments that they are familiar with, some of those things just don't apply. one way to look at this is that the government that you are familiar with is a foreign government, number one. Number two, that foreign government exists under the constitutions and they're supposed to be obeying those constitutions, but they often evade their obligations under the constitutions because for a long time, our American government and our ASCs were not present to enforce the constitutional contracts. So they had a long, long run where they could get away with murder and nobody was going to hold them accountable because the actual people that were the signatories and parties to the constitutions were not present. It was the state citizens that were the parties on our side, the employer's side, who signed the constitutions into effect. So they're the only ones that can enforce the constitutions. They're the only ones that have the position and standing to do so. So there are things about the whole situation that are substantially different than anything you've ever experienced or thought. And one of the most common assumptions that Americans have is that our government stands under the Constitution. But no, we're the employers. Our state citizens are the parties to the Constitution from the employer's side, and the other parties are the federal vendors of services who are receiving these constitutions as service contracts. Constitutions generally, we've been taught to lionize constitutions and venerate them like sacred cows, but actually constitution just means that it's a debt agreement in which one party agrees to receive services or goods and the other party agrees to pay for it. So there's nothing so special about calling something a constitution. And the other thing that we miss is that it's actually a service contract in which we delegate certain powers to our subcontractors, to these vendors of services. And we donate from our store of abilities and powers, the enumerated powers to provide those services. So for example, we have delegated the power to conduct trade negotiations in part to the United States of America Incorporated, which is a British territorial entity, a corporation. We gave them the power to do that as part of the Constitution of the United States of America. You can look at those constitutions and think of them as service contracts, and it will very rapidly become apparent to you that we, the Americans, signed up for this and delegated powers to these federal service vendors and enabled them to carry out the jobs that we delegated to them. So the Constitution, I don't know about the rest of you, but even when I was going through school 50 years ago, the Constitutions were read as homework, right? And you can guess how many teenagers read the whole Constitution with any interest or detail, right? And they were not explained. If we didn't get it from our own reading of it, it was not explained to us that the constitutions did not apply to us as American state nationals. It was never explained to us that these constitutions were agreements between state citizens and other principals who are acting as the service vendors. And the whole idea that the constitutions were service contracts absolutely never entered the conversation ever. Constitution was treated as a sacred cow, and there wasn't even any mention of the fact that there were two self-evident constitutions. You had to notice for yourself that there was a Constitution of the United States of America and a Constitution called the Constitution of the United States. And if you weren't paying attention and you weren't looking around and digging a bit yourself, you could go all the way through high school civics class and never learn that little fact, which, as it turns out, is important, because so long as you think there's only one constitution, you think there's only one government at the federal level. So there were a lot of things that were omitted from our education that were preferential and beneficial to our federal service providers. They basically hand-tailored our education so that we would not discover who we were, and we would not populate our government and be able to enforce the constitutional obligations that they have. They are very apt and avid about making us pay the bills, which is 9/10 of our obligation under the Constitution. But they are not so avid about honoring their limitations or honoring their good faith service contract. Because throughout the Constitution, you will see those little words, good faith service. And, you know, a lot of the time they evade providing us with good faith service, having hijacked our identity like a bunch of credit card hackers. They pretend that we are federal dual citizens, and they play games with us in their foreign courts, and they use their foreign courts as a means to defraud, denigrate, and steal from us. And so we have a situation where we've had two federal subcontractors who are supposed to be operating under the two remaining constitutions that are active or have been active. And they have run wild. They've been rogue for decades. And although we potentially have had the ability to organize our assemblies, and we've had the ability to, you know, identify our state citizens, and our state citizens and our instrumentality in international jurisdiction, the Federation of States, have had the ability to enforce the constitutions. Nobody knew that they had to do that. Nobody knew the history well enough to know how the constitutions were supposed to be enforced or by who. Okay, things had slid that far. And so our federal subcontractors were just ramming around doing whatever they wanted and charging it off against our assets and our credit and our money and everything else, thinking that there was never going to be a judgment day and the Americans were never going to wake up and come home and do anything. But we did. And, you know, thank God that the Federation of States alone, among all of the different federal and Federation and American and everything, managed to survive 165 years. And thank God that we still had one state standing, which was Texas. God bless them forever. And we had 22 counties out of 3,000 that were still functioning. I kind of went through that earlier today. We were at the utter end of being destroyed, being utterly gone, having no presence, having our government totally vacated. And believe me, the European subcontractors were very gleeful. They were sitting there counting the money and the land and everything that they were going to take over without any opposition from us, and then use their courts to defraud us some more. They thought that they had this down. They thought that America no longer existed and that the American government was long since defunct. They had not in the wildest of their imaginations did they think that we would ever, quote unquote, come home from over the sea?
Appreciate that answer. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the structure of what we are building. I know we're trying to build a decentralized government of and for and by the people. I grew up, don't want to date myself, but I had American history as well as U.S. history. But of course, being a kid, I wasn't paying attention as much as I should have. However, I did grow up in a household with a father who had a master's degree in history and English. And I never once heard any mention of pillars. And I know I recently heard Lisa say that we as the Assembly have not reached the point of having congressmen being sent to Philadelphia, to our national capital. And so that's where I was drawing the correlation between the structures laid out by the founding fathers and the separations of power. And if we had a similar thing regarding pillars and there being a separation of powers within the pillars.
We call them pillars, but what we're talking about are functions of state assemblies. Now, bear in mind, the federal subcontractors from the District of Columbia have district assemblies. They have a municipal district assembly, and they have a territorial district assembly. So they call their organizations assemblies too. You have to be aware of that little fact so that you know which assembly and which group of people you're talking about. So if you're looking for historical mention of pillars, you're not going to find it. What you're going to find are the traditional services and functions of state assemblies in America in the years between 1776 and 1861. And after 1861, the history is going to go fairly silent because the British came in here under false pretenses and inserted themselves and their American Tory affiliates as substitutes and claimed emergency powers that were never granted to them, and began the whole process of asserting the power of the commander-in-chief office, which, as I've noted several times today, is a naval office, right? And as it turns out, the Brits had an agreement to take over as the trustees of the American Navy on the high seas and navigable inland waterways. And that's how they have, juried around and used the office of commander-in-chief to assert a control and a position that was never granted to them, that extends beyond the office intended for the commander-in-chief, and which has allowed them to usurp onto our land and soil. So our enemies from day one are the British government, and the British government has been in business with the Holy Roman Empire since the days of King Henry VIII. And so they've been over here unlawfully converting the political status of American babies to that of British territorial citizens, who are second-class people in the British Empire. And then they are converting those second-class citizens in the British Empire into Roman inferior estate trusts using the Cess Decay Acts. And basically, they've been pillaging and plundering in this country for 165 years and being very, very quiet about it, for the very reason that what they're doing is illegal, unlawful, and immoral. And they have contracts with us that they are in breach of trust with regard to the constitutions. They're in breach of trust and in violation of those service contracts. And so they are guilty parties. They are guilty as sin, and we've proven that. But anyway, it's a bad situation where we were betrayed by service vendors that owed us good faith service, and who instead left us in the dark and usurped upon us, and who even for a time gained control of the education of our children and deliberately stripped the library bookshelves of information about us and our American history. They took American history out of the school curriculum. They very studiously took our law books out of the law libraries. They have done everything they could possibly do to keep us ignorant and keep us inactive and keep us from stepping up and claiming back our property and our rights and enforcing those constitutions against them. However, we did wake up. We have brought forward our rights and our identities, and it makes them look like what they are: hypocrites and cheats, dishonorable fraud artists who, with malice aforethought, have worked against America, against our state assemblies, against their neighbors and countrymen on behalf of foreign powers. And the foreign powers that they have espoused are the British monarch and the Pope, acting in the office of the Roman Pontiff, which was dissolved in 2011, by the way. But nonetheless, that was how this was all accomplished and how they usurped upon us from the Civil War onward. So we now have 6 generations of Americans who don't know who they are, don't know what's owed to them, don't know how their own government is organized versus the US government provided by our federal subcontractors and their state-of-state franchise corporations. And everyone's having to learn. Everyone's having to go back to school. And everyone's being called to step forward and join their assembly and pull an oar. Because if we don't do this, what our erstwhile federal subcontractors and the principals benefiting from plundering and pillaging and evading had planned was that they were going to give our assets to their creditors. At a certain point, they would just strip all the assets they could strip, and then they would use our land assets as payment to their creditors. And this was well advanced at the point that my husband and I took up the mantle and began the counter strike against them and began to actively push against this flow of history. And a lot of the history that they put out was frankly bullshit. Anyway, they were well on their way to selling our resources, selling our land, designating all of our people as debtors when in fact they're creditors, misidentifying our people as dual federal citizens and as shadow backing the king or the pope, respectively, or both. We traced back what they were doing with the undisclosed birth certificates. We found that they were splitting the pot, so to speak, 60 to 40. The Pope was getting 60% of the take, and the Brits were taking 40% of the lifetime expected value of our labor. And they were then subjecting us to labor bondage, 2 different forms, one peonage and one enslavement. And they were using this as the basis for their demands that they were enforcing through the Internal Revenue Service and the IRS. And please note that although most Americans thought that the IRS was just an abbreviation of Internal Revenue Service, there were in fact two separate organizations, one British territorial operation that was operated as the Internal Revenue Service, which was spelled out, and the municipal counterpart was the IRS. And basically, they were using this system of usurpation, non-disclosure, false claims in commerce, impersonation, and personage to rob us, defraud us, denigrate us, misrepresent us, and steal from us. And that has been going on for 165 years.
Well, I again appreciate that answer. Is Lisa correct in that at some point, I guess through the Confederation, which we haven't established yet, reestablished, that we're going to have congressmen going to Philadelphia? And I recognize that it's late, so that's the last question I'm asking.
Well, we do have a Congress. The American Congress is called the Continental Congress. The Continental Congress meets in Philadelphia. Each state assembly will choose among its members, its state citizens. It will choose among the state citizens a delegation to attend the Continental Congress in Philadelphia. And at that point, we will be sorting out a lot of different things. But I think it's important for Americans to understand that although it is the starting point, that the Confederation of States needs to be reestablished, and that the American Federal Republic would be established under its constitution, which is called the Constitution for the United States of America, with a small u on United. That may not happen because neither the Confederation of States nor the American Federal Republic are necessary to the function of this government.
Interesting.
Yes, I know. The Union States and the Federation of States are sufficient to run the entire thing, and did so for 5 years. And it was only in 1781, still during the Revolutionary War, but it was only in 1781 that we spun off the Confederation. And the difference between a federation of states and a confederation of states is the nature of the members of the entity and the means by which they act. Okay, so you've got the Union States that were created by the Declaration of Independence. You have the States of the Union, which are the member states of the Federation. And then you have the Confederation, in which the members are states of states. They are actually businesses, and they operate in the realm of commerce. So if you want to look at it in terms of business, you have the asset holders, you have the holding companies, and you have the incorporated entities. The Federation of States of the Union operates by having each state assembly vote. So when we form a law we do a polling process. We go to each state assembly and we put the proposal before them, and they say yay or nay, and then we tally the votes, and that's the result. They each act separately, individually. In the Confederation of States, the states of states operate all together. They are confederated into one voting bloc, if you will. Now, the thing that turned out to be deadly to them was specifically that fact, is that they were organized as a confederation, and they either had to walk all together or not walk at all. And when it came to the issue of slavery, which the southern states considered vital to their interest and vital to their economic survival and vital to the good of their people, therefore, they would not walk along with their northern brethren who were not affected very much, certainly not in comparison, by the issue of slavery on their economies. So it was that broke the Confederation and prevented the Confederation from being recreated during or after the Civil War. Because even though it was a matter of economics, and one or more of the southern states might have come back to the Confederation, it still would not have been sufficient. If you look at the Articles of Confederation that were passed subsequent, you'll see that it was set up as a, quote, perpetual union. And in law and in fact, you cannot create a perpetual union for the very fact that it's being created by people. And a perpetual union cannot be maintained by any mortal force. A perpetual union can only be created by nature. And in the case of the perpetual union between land and soil, it is in fact nature that creates the perpetual union, not any act or verbiage or paper written by man. The soil naturally arises out of the land. And if you scrape the soil layer off the land, all that happens is that a new soil layer is exposed. Okay, so that is the nature of the perpetual union between land and soil. Unfortunately, when they tried to extract and extend that principle to the realm of commerce, it was impractical and couldn't stand the stress and strain of divergent needs and divergent economies among, at that point, I think 33 separate states that were diverse in culture and climate and economic and industrial base. So that was an impractical and improper structure to begin with. It collapsed because it was impractical and unenforceable. And there you have it. The Confederation, doing business as the States of America, got the Constitution service contract called the Constitution for the United States of America. And, you know, you can see because that particular Constitution, the way that it's actually named, the word united is never capitalized. And it makes it clear that the Constitution, the service contract, went to something called the States of America. Well, it just so happens that the Confederation was called the States of America. So the American federal service provider was the States of America. The States of America ceased to function in March of 1861 when the delegates from the southern states all walked out and left the States of America without a quorum to conduct business. And because the Constitution for the United Small U States of America was actually held by the States of America, which was inoperable, the Federal Republic that they operated also became inoperable. However, we really didn't need either of those organizations intact to function. It was convenient, it was useful, it was something that we could have done ourselves and chose not to do. And so we compare it to hiring a company to mow your lawn. And it's just a stair step in both cases. The States of America was hired to handle routine business for the American government in the realm of commerce. The States of America then created and hired a new separate company that was known as the Federal Republic. And the Federal Republic received delegated powers from the States of America, which received its delegated powers from the Federation. So basically, the Federation contributed the powers that were peeled off to the States of America as of 1781. And the States of America created the Federal Republic as of 1787 and peeled off some more powers and delegations of powers to the new Federal Republic. But this is, okay, imagine the situation. You hire a company that is a landscaping company, and the landscaping company hires a company to do the tree removal and brush cleanup on the property. You've got a contractor, and then that contractor has a contractor. And at each stage, a power is being vested in the subcontractor. So the Federation hires the Confederation to do all the landscaping, right? And the Confederation hires the Federal Republic to do the tree removal and lawn care. Okay? But the Federation is, number one, the employer, number two, the ultimate delegator of all the powers to the Confederation and the Federal Republic, both, right? So now that you have it, in those analogous terms, and you can see how it worked and why it was the way it was, you're also prepared to realize that, okay, well, what happens? Suddenly, the companies that you were depending on to do your landscaping and do tree removal and mow the lawns are not able to perform. What naturally happens under those circumstances? Well, under any kind of business contract, and the constitutions are contract, if the intended vendor is unable to perform, the responsibility for the performance falls back to the senior, to the delegator. So when the Confederation could no longer function, that meant that the Federal Republic could not be paid. So the Federal Republic could not function either. All of the delegated powers and jobs and duties that were delegated by the Federation could no longer be performed by either the Confederation doing business as the States of America, nor could the further delegation of powers and duties entrusted to the Federal Republic be done. What happens? Well, by order of law in such a situation, all of those powers and all of those duties and everything that cannot be performed rolls back to the original delegator. And you can observe this in your own life. If you hired a landscaping company and they subcontracted out the lawn services and then went out of business, who's on the hook? And what are your options? You, as the employer and original delegator of those duties and contracts, are stuck with a choice. You can either get out there and do your own lawn care, maintenance, and landscaping, which is an option, or you can hire someone else to do it. Or you could conceivably create another entire new company to do the work for you. But nobody told us. Nobody told the actual owners. Nobody told the state assemblies. Nobody told the American public. The other service providers just saw an opening where, hey guys, yeah, we can move right in and start doing all those tasks. We can take over the lawn mowing and the tree trimming and all the stuff that these other guys were supposed to do. We can slip right in and do that, and we can begin billing for our services. So that's what the other federal subcontractors did without telling their employers. They used very similar names. They used similar emblems. They used similar vehicles. They made it look like they were the original vendors, but they weren't. They were other federal vendors that stepped in and weaseled their way right into all those other functions and all those other contracts that were merely presumed by them. And they claimed that it was because of an emergency, and they gave themselves emergency powers that were never actually authorized or granted to them by anyone here. That's what's been going on for 165 years. And they got
That's something. Yeah, and that's something that I'd like to see in the future when we get this thing rolling properly, that we take care of that, that there is no obfuscation, that names get changed so that it's obvious who you're dealing with.
Well, and that should have been the way it was organized in the first place. The argument was that we had three parts to the American government: the Union, the Federation, and the Confederation, handling the business for this country, right? And that when we delegated powers in each one of the jurisdictions, the foreign jurisdictions, land, water, and air, that these delegated responsibilities should be held under a like a subsidiary name, so that it would be clear who they were doing these delegated services for. And so you will see this exact correlation. When they were doing land jurisdiction work, they were working under the auspices of the States of America, right? And they call themselves what? The States of America had taken on the adjective, the United States of America. So it appeared
made it a proper noun.
Yeah, right. They didn't make it a proper noun. They used all these style conventions so that they know which organization and which government they were referring to. And then we were conveniently never taught any of that.
Well, it's
Yeah.
like the obfuscation of United States of America minor versus major.
Exactly.
And
United States of America Incorporated versus United States of America, a company, an unincorporated company, or an unincorporated federation. You see, there are all these different business entities that you could choose from. You could have an unincorporated private business. You could have an unincorporated public business. You could have a company. You could have an incorporated entity. You could have you could charter a corporation as a public corporation. I mean, there were all these different things, and they were all named similarly. So it created vast confusion and lots of opportunities for obfuscation and graft and corruption and overstepping of jurisdictions and the same kind of slimy stuff that ultimately resolved itself in the usurpations that we've suffered and all the plundering and the asset stripping and false flag misrepresentation that this country has suffered ever since. And it's all been based on misrepresenting and impersonating other parts of the government and abusing the trust of the people. You know, we've got a real good example of it right now. You know, think about this. It looks to the rest of the world as if we, the Americans, fired upon an Iranian ship, the Iris Dina, with no warning, and they were just out as a sovereign ship, you know, as a ship of a sovereign government on the high seas sailing along. And it looks like the United States of America, us in the world's eyes, fired upon that ship, sunk it, and cost the lives of all the Iranian sailors aboard. And that we did this illegally. It looks terrible for us. But guess what? Who is Donald Trump and what office is he operating in? Oh, Commander-in-Chief. Commander's a naval office. And this incident occurred on the high seas. And guess who is who the Commander-in-Chief answers to on the high seas? The British monarch. So the British monarch and the British Admiralty ordered the strike on the Iris Dina, and a ship bearing our Title IV flag did the dirty work. So to the rest of the world, it looks like the Americans drew down on an Iranian ship and blew it out of the water, causing loss of life and loss of equipment and loss of cargo for no good reason, when in fact it was the Brits who ordered that strike. And even if Donald Trump had wanted to countermand it, he couldn't, because it occurred on the high seas. And guess who is in control of the US Navy on the high seas? The Brits. They've been playing these kinds of games for generations. And this, you know, that's a classic false flag, because the actual country and principal that ordered the strike was not represented on the masthead. If this were to be anything even remotely legal, the Union Jack would have been flying on that US Navy ship, not the Stars and Stripes. So this is an abuse of the Stars and Stripes, which, you know, is the wartime flag in the Title IV proportions, right? They used our flag in a totally inappropriate way, made us look like the bad guys, made us look like the boogeyman and the lawless robbers and destroyers, right? When in effect, even if he'd wanted to do differently, Trump was taking his orders from the British monarch on the high seas. You know, there's a lot of stuff like that. And you always have to look at, where did it occur what happened, who was really in control. So the Brits have set us up in the Middle East, and they've set us up in such a way that they come out looking like the good guys. They come out looking like they're on the high moral ground, and yet they're the ones paying Trump to attack Iran. Britain, Germany, and Israel paid Trump and the mercenary United States of America Incorporated that he runs to attack Iran. And he did so under our flag. Okay? It's a privately owned commercial mercenary service. Okay? The United States of America Incorporated has been a commercial mercenary service since 1861. And these commercial mercenaries are for hire to the highest bidder. So, although our children are never told this, so although they sign up and they serve and they think they're serving their country, no, they're serving as very cheap mercenaries. And they're cheap because they don't know that they're mercenaries. If they knowingly signed on as mercenaries, I'm sure they would all demand mercenary pay, which is much, much, much higher. And they would demand mercenary benefits, which are also much, much, much better. So it was to the advantage of this British territorial corporation to keep its mouth shut and sing all sorts of hymns to patriotism and whistle Yankee Doodle all the way to the bank and get all these young Americans to sign up voluntarily and be, quote unquote, inducted into a foreign mercenary service, not that much different than the Foreign Legion, and be used as cheap cannon fodder for whatever the highest bidder wanted them to do. Whether it was France paying them to protect French rubber plantations in Vietnam, or it was, the British government paying them to protect poppy fields in Afghanistan, or if it was a coalition of Britain, Germany, and Israel paying them to attack Iran. You see, what we think of as our military hasn't been our military in a very long time. And all those good people that have sacrificed their lives and suffered maiming and come home and wondered why they didn't get all the benefits that they were promised and why they were constantly cheated and why they were disrespected and everything else. They just weren't playing with a full deck because they were being deceitfully defrauded and mistreated in breach of trust and contract. They were being deceived just as any con artist deceives a mark. And that's the way that our whole situation has been here for 165 years. The military during Ulysses S. Grant's time in office, both as a general and later as president, was converted into a British territorial mercenary services organization, and it illegally occupied this country from 1863 onward. So we've been the subject of an illegal foreign mercenary occupation for 160 some years. And, we're just waking up to this fact. And, a lot of veterans are thinking back and thinking of things that they saw and things that they knew, but they couldn't put it in the framework. They've had suspicions for a long, long time. And at the higher ranks, people like Smedley Butler have come right out and said it's a racket. It's a racket. It's a con. It's a crime. It's a criminal situation. And it's been a criminal situation for a very long time. So it became institutionalized. And everybody thought, well, it's been that way for, you know, however long. It's been that way as long as we can remember. So it must be right, right? A crime that is unobserved, a crime that you don't know is happening, might as well not be a crime. Because if you don't recognize it as a crime, you can't do anything about it. If you accept it, if you accept a criminal circumstance, then the rest of the world looks at you and figures that you support it, that you accept that you're going along with it, that you acquiesce to the circumstance. But our boys never knew. A lot of
or
them,
the general population.
Or the general population. And we were deliberately all kept ignorant so that we would continue to serve for patriotic reasons, because it sure as hell wasn't for money and it wasn't for glory. It wasn't.
I believe right now it's with Iran. It's to do exactly what Trump's saying: change out the regime, put their own in, and put a centralized bank in there, and the rest of us are paying for it at the pump.
And it's Britain. Look at what's Look at what's going on. Britain, Germany, China, and Japan have all been backing the Iranian regime. Britain has been in control of the Iranian government since 1908. Britain has ordered every regime change in Iran since 1908. So they took down the Shah, and they are now taking out the Ayatollahs. And they're paying us to be the muscle, to provide the mercenary service to do it.
All under the guise of weapons of mass destruction.
Well, of course, there have to be those claims of weapons of mass destruction. And if you haven't heard it already, I'm sure within a few days you'll hear that some crack Navy SEAL teams or some crack Delta forces went in and found stashes of, vials of some kind of evil parasite or virus or whatever that was earmarked to be deployed here in this country. And that's all bullshit.
Well, they couldn't do that in Iraq. You know, Bush Jr. was talking about weapons of mass destruction. They never brought any forward.
Well, that's because there were ground forces involved, and the U.S. Army wouldn't go along with it. There are no ground forces involved here, so he can use his commander-in-chief office and suppress anything and not even go anywhere. Just make the claim and bring forward some vials of crap that they crafted themselves and say, oh, the Iranians were going to do this. So it becomes a defense of America. And here's the bill for all of the money we spent going over there and all the armaments that we wasted on this. It's, yeah, what they do is they take these sidebar contracts, like, right now they're hired by Britain, Germany, and Israel. They go over there, they drum up some excuse to say that it's in defense of America, and then they give us the bill. So they're getting paid both ends. They're getting paid from the guys that actually hired them, and they're getting paid, all their expenses are being paid by the American public. They're in a very sweet spot. And they come up with these outrageous claims that, oh, yeah, we were defending America over in the Fiji Islands. Oh, those Fiji Islanders were going to develop a nuclear bomb and destroy us. No, it's just a matter so that they can charge off their expenses as a corporation to us. We all know it doesn't really have anything to do with defending this country. And we all know that the original Constitution did not in any way envision the use of extraterritorial force to defend this country. The founding fathers made it very clear that it was not their intention to use our soldiers and sailors for extraterritorial opportunism or privateering. They made it very clear that defense of this country meant...
Portrait. Welcome to Taco. Well,
We have a hot mic.
Yeah, well,
that was my mic. It was it's a phone trying to turn on. Sorry about that. I'll mute.
Okay.
Processing request. Carrier device manager requests are processing.
They made it clear that defense meant defense of this country's borders, defense of its security, okay? It did not mean that they could just take off and go to Mali and pound the Mali government into dust and murder a bunch of people and call it defense of this country. That was not the intent of the founding fathers. In fact, Thomas Jefferson absolutely railed against having a professional military. He said it was the greatest evil and the worst blunder that we could make was to have a standing professional military, because all throughout history, when you have a standing professional military, they get bored during peacetime and they don't have advancement because there are no openings in the ranks until somebody dies of old age. It's damned unexciting to be a successful professional member of a military that's at peace. So there's a built-in conflict of interest. And if you're really, really good at your job, which it turns out the Americans are really good at war, it's even worse because you work yourself out of a job. This is what Ulysses S. Grant and William Tecumseh Sherman had directly observed in their own lives. And so they very quickly decided that, hey, this idea of working as a mercenary company and making our living doing what we do best and having a constant stream of work to do and advancement in the military careers, and hey, this is a good deal for soldiers and sailors as professionals. But we weren't supposed to have a professional military. We were supposed to have a small core group of professional military people that would be available to take over a popular army, a popular navy, a popular, well, they didn't think of Air Force at that point, but it was supposed to be a small group of professional military personnel that would then guide the untrained civilian population that would step forward and serve in time of national need. That all changed under the Monroe Doctrine when, of course, and this was a British president again, this was not our guy, this was their guy. Monroe put the rubber stamp on the idea that military power could be exercised extraterritorially anywhere in the world that any American interest was in danger. So that's where you got this gross expansion of the mercenary mission to any corner of the world. And they just became expert at claiming that it was for the defense of an American interest. Oh, well, Bob Dole's pineapple plantation in Hawaii is under attack by a competitor, a Filipino pineapple plantation, and so we're going to go bomb the Philippines. Stuff like that has actually happened. It's happened repeatedly. And they're just hiring out to like the big oil companies or the big tech companies. They're going all over the world. They're oh, we've got a competitor in China that's out competing us in the silicone chip industry. Well, let's go bomb their facility in China, unless, of course, we happen to already own that facility in China. You see? It's grown, it's proliferated, it became institutionalized. They found ways into our pocketbooks. They heisted our identity and they got into our credit. They used us, they used our very bodies, they used our labor, they used our land, they used our gold and our silver as collateral for their spending. And then they came back home and said, oh, and by the way, that job we did in Ethiopia or South Africa or Japan or, you know, for Raytheon or for, you know, Exxon or for Bob Dole's Pineapple Empire, you know, that was in defense of an American interest under the Monroe Doctrine. So here's the bill for it, American taxpayer. That's what we've been dealing with for 165 years. And, you know, why didn't people see it? Well, part of it is that all the emblems and songs and flags and things appeared to be the same. Most people don't even realize that the Title IV flag that the quote unquote military uses is a flag that was granted to Britain for use when their British territorial subcontractor, the United States of America Incorporated, was exercising our delegated powers. Look at Title IV. It explicitly describes a precise proportion of our stars and stripes that is delegated for the use of the United States of America Incorporated, the delegated power. So when they are acting for us under delegated power, they have the right to use the Title IV flag, which are all the flags that are in this specific proportion, which is spelled out in Title IV. They are not supposed to use flags of any other proportion. We retain the right to use flags of any other proportion for our purposes, right? And so they've been running all over the world as private foreign mercenary services, taking on all of these jobs for big industries and banks and other countries and other entities entirely. They've been waging war in our name, and all that they required under the Monroe Doctrine was that an American interest or even one American life was endangered. Think about that. They've been able to foist off trillions upon trillions upon trillions of defense debts based on this, without a single American ever approving it. And they've run this whole dirty show under what appeared to be our flag, so that our country, which was once respected and trusted and loved by countries all over the world, has been misled to do things which are immoral, illegal, and reprehensible. So not only have we gotten the bill for it, not only have we paid the butcher's bill for it, but we've got the bad reputation too. We've been set up as the bullies. We've been set up as the scapegoats for these vermin. And there's really no other way to describe these British territorial agents and agencies and these men who have deceived the American people and who have been substituting a president for the president for 165 years. Abraham Lincoln was not the president of this country. He wasn't the president of anything but a British territorial company calling itself the United States of America Incorporated. He was a president in the same sense that you have a president of Exxon, you have a president of Raytheon, you have a president of GMC, you have a president of Ford Motor Company. He wasn't our president. And he couldn't have been our president. And to be fair, there were a lot of people at the time who had to know that, because of a little thing that they tried to bury called the Title of Nobility Amendment. When this country was first set up and we set up the constitutions and we gave these delegated powers and duties to these federal subcontractors, there was language in the original constitutions, all three federal constitutions, that said that people that work for our government can't accept emoluments and titles from foreign governments. So if you wanted to work for our government, either directly for the American government or indirectly through employment with one of the U.S. federal subcontractors, you could not accept gifts above a certain amount of money, a trivial amount of money. You couldn't, get equipment or land or things like that as gifts from foreign nations without the express consent of Congress and public declaration. And you couldn't accept foreign titles. You couldn't be dubbed Sir whatever and continue to work for our government. This was in the constitutional language from the very beginning. However, even though we had this language prohibiting the acceptance of emoluments and foreign titles, we did not have language specifying a punishment for it. So, enter the original 13th Amendment, the Titles of Nobility Amendment, which was designed to rectify that omission in the original constitutional language. And so all the states were asked to vote on the issue of the punishment for accepting foreign emoluments and titles. And that punishment, by the way, was basically loss of your citizenship and job. And anyway, they passed it. The last state needed to ratify it was Virginia in 1819. And this immediately meant that no bar attorney could work for our American government. It also meant that none of those subcontractors providing us with services could hire bar attorneys, because all bar attorneys are esquires in the British system. Abraham Lincoln became a bar attorney in 1834. Basically 15 years after the Titles of Nobility Amendment was added to the Constitution for the United Small U States of America. So he fully knew that he could not work for the American government and could not serve as president of the American federal subcontractor, the Federal Republic. He was prohibited from serving in any public office related to either one by the Titles of Nobility Amendment added to the American Federal Republic Constitution. He had to be working for the British territorial subcontractor under the Constitution of the United States of America, because that was British. It pertained to maritime and admiralty contracts. So that is the only possible presidential office that Abraham Lincoln could fill. And that is the only office he did fill as president. He could not operate as president of the United States in any sense. He could not act as the president of the United States for the American Federal Republic. He could not operate as president of the United States for the municipal subcontractor, the Holy Roman Empire's version of the United States either. It's right there in the history books, although they've tried to bury it. And there's been all this confusion all these years in the patriot community about, you know, what happened to the original titles of nobility amendment. That was supposed to be the 13th Amendment. It was ratified by our states. Why doesn't it appear in the Constitution? Well, it's because it was added to the Constitution of the American Federal Republic, that federal subcontractor. And let's have a show of hands. How many people ever heard about the Constitution for the United, with a small u, States of America? That Constitution had conveniently disappeared many years before and was damned hard to dig up a copy of it. It was never taught in school. Nobody ever mentioned it. For many years, a copy of it sat in a vestibule in the U.S. Capitol building. And while I'm at it, all you veterans, have you noticed that the American flag hangs in the congressional chambers in a struck position? Hello?
Well, and
This is
not that, Anna, but they constantly misuse in these patriot communities. They constantly misuse federal republic,
right,
and they're out promoting that they're restoring the federal republic, having no knowledge, or it appears no knowledge, about standing up our state assemblies and restoring our Confederation first. You can't
have one without the other.
Right. So what you're bringing up is so important. This whole lesson has been vitally important, I think, for all people on all of the assemblies, and frankly, all of those independent patriot groups that, you know, they have their hearts in the right place, but they lack this very foundational knowledge. So thank you so much for teaching us. But you were talking about the flag being hung in the struck position.
Right, all the military men should know that. When they see a State of the Union address and they see the flag in a struck position, they should all be going, what? What the? They should all be outraged. They should all be going, what in the hell is going on here? Why is our flag in a struck position in the chambers of the Congress?
Well, and for the benefit of the playback for newbies, can you explain why that is a big deal?
Well, when a flag is hung in a struck position, it means that the government behind it is not operational. Okay? And so this has actually been in front of our faces all our years. And yet nobody recognized it. Nobody saw it for what it was. They were announcing that the American Federal Republic was not in operation. Now, it turns out that that's not a big deal, because the Federation of States is fully capable of taking over those delegated responsibilities that it delegated in the first place. We can mow our own freaking lawn if we know that we have to do it, if we're not counting on someone who's not there to do it. And here's the point: we were never told. The American public was never given full disclosure. of any of this. I've had to learn it. We've had to learn it by dint of our own hard work for decades. All this stuff was buried so deep, and all of the clues that were left were so out of context that even though they were blatant in some cases, like, you know, the flag being struck in the congressional chambers, we were left with the idea, the firm idea, that our government was intact, that the Reconstruction took place a long time ago, and that there was nothing left for us to do, that it was all, you know, that was history. But in fact, the Reconstruction of the American side of it never took place. We were never told what was going on.
Hey, Mike, your mic is hot.
Anyway, guys, my voice is about to give out. I think I've regaled you with enough information, so if you listen to the playback 10 times, you might get all of it. But there is a large amount of evidence for what I'm saying. There's evidence in the form of things that people actually experience and know. There's evidence in the form of emblems like the use and misuse of the flag. There's evidence in our courthouses, which once had a copy of the 10 Commandments posted in every court in this country. And they've been largely erased or removed. The only place that you see the 10 Commandments now is in the Supreme Court.
Yeah, it's very sad. Thank you, Anna, so much.
Well, I had a good rant, but my voice is going, you can hear it.
You did wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, you really did, Anna. 5 hours.
I love real American history. I just love it.
Amazing job, Anna.
Well, you guys, I'm glad you stuck with me. I know it's real late for some of you, but that was, you know, we got down to some of the heart issues here, some of the real dirty stuff and some of the real facts.
True.
So I'm glad you were all here listening. I hope you all learn it by heart and are able to recite it for anybody else
working
who
on it.
needs to hear it.
Huge hugs, Anna.
Granny's campfire stories.
Yes, I love the campfire stories. They're so much fun. Thank you, Anna, so much.
All right, guys. Good night.
Good night,
God
Anna.
bless you,
God
Anna.
bless you, Anna.
Have
Thank
a
you.
great night, everyone.
Thank you, later.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week. God bless you. Go you forth and multiply.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Michelle.
Michelle,
You
for all
take
you
care. We
do.
love you.
Thanks,
Love
Anna.
you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Michelle.
Sam,
Thank
Michelle.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.